morning, viewers. It's a freezing morning here in Delhi, and you're probably up with a hot cup of tea or coffee, glued to your TV and mobile screens. Let me welcome you to an unusual budget broadcast. Unusual only because it is a Sunday. Now, if you're wondering why the budget has to be presented on a Sunday, I will let you know that pretty soon. And I will also shortly be introducing a stellar set of panelists who would help lay out the expectations from Budget 2026 and then help us decode it. So let me quickly answer why the budget is being presented on Sunday. Now, in 2017, the budget presentation date was fixed on February 1st. Before 2017, the budget, as you might know, was presented on the last working day of February. But by fixing the date to the first of the month, regardless of the day of the week, the government wanted to ensure that the budget process will be completed before the new financial year begins on April 1st. So unusual event for a Sunday, but only so things could run as usual overall. Now, in a little more than an hour from now, the finance minister's budget speech will commence. This will be her 9th budget speech in a row. And here's what we know so far about what's going to be in focus. So the finance minister's announcement is to focus on Part B of the Union Budget. Structurally, the budget is presented in two parts. Part A, which is broadly speaking the macro section, it covers the broad economic survey, government schemes and allocations for different sectors. This year, however, the finance minister, we're told, is expected to focus on Part B of the budget, which is generally brief, restricted to tax proposals and technical announcements. And the finance minister is likely to speak at length on Part B, on immediate and long-term economic goals of the country. Now, let me introduce the stellar set of panelists that I'm joined by here. I have Sonam Srivastava, somebody you've seen on Mint earlier as well. She's the founder and CEO of Right Research. Then I have Ms. Tax Expert, Ms. Richa Swani from GT Bharat. And then I have Mr. Gaurav Arora, partner Deloitte India. Welcome. Sonam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Let me quickly come across to you. Looking at the markets, while there was some expectation that, in fact, I remember last year when we spoke on a Saturday, because budget was being presented on a Saturday, we were discussing, markets are open, it's unusual. Today is a Sunday, another unusual day for markets to be open. What you are seeing so far?
No, I think it's definitely a very interesting day on which the budget has come, not just because it's a Sunday and we have to wake up early, but also because, you're seeing a lot of movement in the metal space today, especially due to, the announcements of the Fed chairman. So if you look at it today, you're seeing big correction in the silver, gold prices and a lot of metals. So I think it's a parallel event going on along with the budget. I think, the expectation from the budget, from the market standpoint, are sort of moderate. We see them focusing more on fiscal consolidation, but with a growth focus. So, we're looking at the budget as a trigger to bring on some positivity into the market.
Right. Now, let me quickly, get everybody's initial expectations on the budget. And of course, then you will talk about some of the things that you touched upon, Sonam, from the announcement, of course, made by the Fed. And then, of course, the crashing prices of certain commodities, especially metals, gold, silver. Ms. Swani, let me come to you.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Good
Can
morning.
you hear me, Ms. Swani?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So why don't you share with us your expectations from the budget? Because in about an hour and a half from now, the finance minister's budget speech will commence her 9th straight budget.
So essentially nothing major on the taxation rate front, be it on the individual side or the corporate side. But we do expect that there is a lot of initiatives or reforms on the ease of compliance side, which is the TDS rationalization, and then the tax certainty perspective, which essentially means dispute resolution and dispute prevention. So these are some of the areas where we feel that the FM may focus this time.
I'll request my producers to raise the volume because I can barely hear Ms. Swani. In the meantime, let me come to you, Mr. Arora. We're probably having some issues with her audio. We'll get back to her. But Mr. Arora, why don't you share with us your expectations from the budget?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me well? Am I audible? Yeah, I was also able to hear everybody else. Can you hear me? Let me try again.
Now I can, Mr. Arora. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. We don't see a lot of newer announcements in this budget, because there is a lot of incentives already given to renewable energy projects, best projects over the years. What we could see is something happening on the localization side. Government likes PLI incentives. So we see a certain tranche of PLI incentive for equipment manufacturers, certain PLI tranche given to component manufacturers to improve on the entire ecosystem of the play and the value chain. So that's something which I am, to be honest, looking forward to see something bigger coming that side.
Okay. Ms. Swani, I hope you can hear me this time.
Yeah. Am I audible?
All right. So before anything, let's just hear from you, your expectations from the budget.
So, as I said earlier, nothing major as far as the changes in tax rates are concerned. And here again, as I said, it's neither on the individual tax front, where slab rates were changed last year. And similarly, on the corporate tax side, again, we don't really foresee any significant changes happening. I think the thrust this time would be more on the tax reforms in terms of the ease of compliance and dispute resolution. So essentially, the tax certainty perspective. The FM had the economic survey talks about the Goldilocks moment for the economy. What we are looking at is the Goldilocks moment for from the tax dispute resolution and the tax compliance perspective. So that would be what I would be looking for in this particular budget.
Right. Are you talking about customs by any chance? Some sort of amnesty? Is that what you're hinting at?
Customs is something that she did mention, but being a direct tax professional, I am looking more at reforms in terms of dispute resolution, wherein the CIT appeal level, where there is a lot of clogging of cases that happens, that becomes actually a choke point in this entire gamut of dispute resolution scheme that we have. So laying down of stricter timelines where cases can be, cases are stuck up here. The other thing that I'm looking at is the advanced ruling, authority for advanced ruling was replaced by the board for advanced ruling. So these rulings are not binding on the revenue. So that kind of takes away the certainty element. So that is one area, I think, if we make that to be binding on the department, we bring the tax is concerned.
All right. So now let me come to you finally for, of course, you. But then I was looking at the markets at that point in time, and it made sense to talk about markets. But let me also hear from you. What are you expecting from the budget? And then, of course, the finer points that all of you have laid down so far, we will start discussing them.
Definitely. See, I think this budget, last couple of budgets have been focusing a lot on fiscal consolidation, right? from the announcement point of view. But this time we expect, a slight pivot to growth. I think, like I said, the market is looking at a vote of confidence from the government on sort of reviving growth. We also expect them to focus a lot on the fiscal deficit, right? I think that would be something to focus on. I think on the capex side also, so most of the expectation that is built on the market right now is mostly on infra side. You have already seen the defense and railways and all those infra stocks have sort of rallied a little bit pre-budget. But from the market perspective, there's been a muted sort of a pre-budget rally, but we sort of expect post-budget to be more positive. I think there's also expectations on the rural front, right? You expect the rural reforms to continue, and we are also looking at some of the financial companies, especially in the credit space, because we are looking at a revival of credit growth in the economy, right? And it would be very interesting to see what the government is going to announce on the affordable housing to all, etc. uh, I think also on in the changing world order, I think there should be a focus on data centers and the new technology. So that would also be something interesting to look for. So I think we don't expect any big uh, announcements given the geopolitics scenario, but we would look at how the government is going to cushion India in this high tariff regime, and what are the key announcements that would be made in these sectors. And I'm hoping for some positivity for the markets, right?
Right. And I'm sure, I mean, something which made headlines
Thanks the world over,
of
of
course,
course, was the crash that we saw in gold and silver prices. There was a revival to the extent
60% immediately after. But that definitely took everybody by surprise. It was a shock. How are you seeing metals, commodities at this point in time, how they place? What's happening in that part, of the market? Because that really seems to be volatile. Markets at large are volatile, but especially what we're seeing in precious metals.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. You've seen, I think silver prices have corrected almost 30% from the top in the global markets, and there's been a significant correction in gold also. This is primarily happening because the new Fed chairman that Donald Trump has sort of favored is slightly more hawkish, right? He might try to keep the dollar strong. I think that is what the expectation is, and if the dollar gets stronger, then you would see some correction in gold and silver and precious metals. But I would still not be very convinced that it's a time to dump these metals, because the geopolitical order is changing. The eastern geography, especially Japan, China, have a lot of focus on precious metals. And I think even the new Fed chairman might cut rates faster. So I think this is a knee-jerk reaction mostly, and a lot of profit booking that might be happening. But yeah, I think metal prices move very volatilely. I mean, they're very, very volatile. So I think I would still maybe look at accumulating at a lower levels in these prices. But yeah, I think right now you really have to watch out for how the correction is panning out. I think along with the precious metals, you can also see stocks like MCX, Hindalco, National Alum, etc. have seen significant sort of correction. Hindustan copper again is down, I think, a lot today. So I think even on the metal basket, you're seeing a lot of movement, and I think related sectors. I think that's what driving a lot of small mid caps to correct as well. But yeah, I think it's a I mean, again, it's driven by geopolitical events, and you still don't have a lot of clarity on the policies yet. But yeah, we are seeing big knee-jerk reaction. I think the government shutdown also has happened in the US, which is dampening sentiment. You can see crypto prices, for example, have gone significantly lower. So a lot happening on the geopolitical front, but on the domestic economy, I think this is a big event to watch out for, right? Hmm.
back to you now. And of course, while from the point of view, as Ms. Swani earlier pointed out, there's not much from the point of view of personal taxation. There's not much there which is likely to be in this budget. But one of the focus areas, of course, is likely to be. I mean, you were talking about PLIs earlier. So which particular sectors are we talking about now? Are we talking about AI, drones? Which are some of these sunrise sectors which you think the budget might focus on, and of course provide furthermore incentives?
No, absolutely. See, let me draw your attention to 3, 4 important infrastructure sectors, and government is focused on infra a lot since the very beginning, and we have seen the result and output by now. See, if you still look at renewable energy sector, correct, which is solar and wind, and government had done with PLI 1, which was of 24,000 crore. It was a tranche 1 and tranche 2 scheme. Almost 11, 12 players participated, and it was a level playing field because you have seen almost, and if you look at today, more than 50 to 80 companies are there in solar module manufacturing. Over a period of last, say, 2 years, we have seen almost 100 gigawatt of domestic module manufacturing, and we are inching towards a 40, 50 gigawatt of solar cell manufacturing. So we are going further backward integrated, and we are creating more domestic jobs over there, keeping the momentum in the similar direction. Now, since as renewable is adding more, there's more curtailment in the grid. Now, because of the curtailment in the grid, which is intermittency, battery storage is to given more emphasis. So government has given already a VGF for 5,000 crore for best projects, but I believe there is more to be done on the manufacturing of battery storage because we are 100% or significantly import dependent in that area. So if we bring more localization rather than on the cell, so government has done one PLI of 18,000 crore for cell, advanced cell chemistry. But if we go to the component level, which is more like electrolytes, cathode active materials, anode active materials, graphites, etc. So then we will be focusing on the value chain and a larger set of companies, like hundreds of companies who get the benefit of this, and then that creates a value chain effect. And then over a period of few years, we have a very strong, resilient supply chain on the battery side, which is also dependent on critical minerals, etc. So that's one area on the equipment side. I would see there can be something. But again, see, frankly speaking, budget, while we all come together and talk during the budget period, but there's not only one budget that comes in India. Every year there are a slew of announcements which keep on happening, and reforms keep on happening at the same pace. But these are the areas where I would see government spending more time, more focus on, and a lot, obviously, etc. are also there. But this one area, I believe, should be a center stage of government, and when we see the budget comes out.
Right, right. Now I have another guest joining me, Mr. Rohit Kumar of the Quantum Hub. Rohit, can you hear me? Good morning.
Good morning, I can hear you.
Right. Rohit, let me just quickly get your initial expectations out of the way from the budget. And then, of course, we will talk about what's happening in the world of tech, AI, and the expectations of the budget specifically because, some of the sunrise sectors like AI, semiconductor, chip manufacturing, is where we probably like to see, some more policy or perhaps even, budget related announcements, allocation related announcements to come up in the budget. At this point in time, we don't know, but we will shortly know. So why don't we just get your
Hi, I lost you at the end, but I got what you were saying. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay,
Please go ahead.
I think echoing some of what was said earlier, the geopolitics has shifted quite considerably in the last year, right? Since when we last Feb, when the budget was announced, and I think tech sovereignty, having more resilient tech supply chains is a very critical ask and an important sort of consideration for the government going into this budget. And I think if you look at the economic survey also, we spoke about how India needs to develop its own ecosystem. And my first expectation in that context from the budget would be much higher investments in R&D. I know we often say this, that India is doing a lot, but I think we significantly lag behind peers. If you look at India's R&D investments, we, I think, only invest about 0.65% of our GDP in R&D, and private sector investment is only about under 35%, whereas when you look at peers like US, China, they are above 2.5% of GDP overall investment, and private sector actually contributes about 75 to 77% of the R&D expenditure. And it is no wonder then that they are really ahead in the race on technology. And, given what we've seen in the last year in terms of very nationalist, not nationalist, but for instance, the US president talking about controlling supply chains, making sure that their companies and he has control over those companies. I think it's very important that we develop more resilient local AI, and for that, I think it'll take time, but we need to start investing in this seriously. I myself studied at IIT Bombay, and I can tell you firsthand that the investment ecosystem, even in our IITs, is quite poor. There is even when money comes in, it comes in with a lot of strings, and there's very little independence that faculty have to really, be able to push that needle. And of course, private sector does very little. So that's my first and most important. Of course, there are other things, and I'm happy to sort of come back to those later.
Right. No, you raised a very important point that the stagnation in R&D budget has been a problem, and as you pointed out, it is hovering around that mark, 0.66465% of the GDP, which is not much, especially when you compare it with peers and, of course, developed economies. Nowhere near that. One thing which we talk about when we talk about the R&D budget is also that there's been a lag as far as private investment is concerned as well, which is perhaps not the case with other countries. Why do you think that private sector lag exists as far as R&D investments are concerned?
No, I think one of the fundamental things also is that what kind of incentives do companies have to be able to sort of do this? I don't know, the tax guys would perhaps know this a lot better than I do. But have we carved out enough incentives for instance, for companies to invest in R&D? What kind of exemptions do they get, and how do we sort of incentivize them? Secondly, I think I also know anecdotally, for instance, there are several, and I've had these conversations with people, that there are several R&D alumni of IITs who have been wanting to sort of give investments to IIT incubators and say that we'll give you a pot of money and you do these investments, and if these companies do well, then give us a stake. Right? Unfortunately, we are so bureaucratic about how we run our institutions that a lot of these kinds of proposals get stuck in the pipeline. If a similar proposal was made in the US, you would have seen it gone through very quickly. So I think it's also about that even in our national institutes, which are supposed to be top of the line, how much independence and authority are we giving them to experiment with new kinds of models where companies put in money and then perhaps get a stake in any product or anything that sort of comes out of it, right? So I think we have to look at the chain of how do we incentivize, how do we, how quick is our mechanism to allow patenting and then, other stuff. And I think I'll have to look at other experts to sort of weigh in there, but I would think that is the primary bottleneck and the constraint.
Right. And this question, I mean, this is perhaps for both Sonam and, of course, Ms. Swani. And that is about, the rationalization of CTCG that we were talking about earlier. Do you think this is likely to happen this year, or perhaps the FM will leave it untouched for another time, another year? Sonam, you can start if you want to, or Ms. Swani.
So you're talking about the long-term and short-term capital gains, is it?
Yes.
See, I think that's a topic that gets a lot of buzz around the budget, right? There's a lot of expectation around it, but I don't see that happening. I mean, I'm not betting on it, right? I mean, I think it would be a huge positive news if that rationalization happens. I think, especially for us who work in quantitative strategies, the increase in short-term gains has led to a lot of investor questions ever since those announcements were made. And yeah, I think if some rationalization happens, but that would be a huge positive, but I'm not betting on it this time.
Not betting on it this time, that being the operational part. All right, Sonam, thank you so much for joining us. Now I have Dr. Rumki Majumdar, economist, Deloitte India, joining us. Ms. Majumdar, good morning. Thank you. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Good morning.
Wonderful.
Can you hear me?
Wonderful. What are your expectations from the budget?
I think the government has given a lot of hints this time, what it's going to focus on. They clearly called out reforms, perform and transform. Clearly, they have been doing quite a few reforms over the last 1 year. Now, I think it will focus on perform, a lot of execution. And many of our panelists did talk about bringing more emphasis on the execution part of it. So be it ensuring that the money is spent prudently, be it the fact that the capital outlay that has been laid out for infrastructure, urbanization, etc., they are actually executed on ground, and we see the investments picking up so that it can crowd in a lot of private investments, which has remained more or less modest so far. So a lot of focus on that. But yeah, in tandem with that, I think they will bring in certain reforms, as the panelists were talking about, customs reforms. Those things are needed. So both will go hand in hand, and only when these reforms and performances comes together is when you will see the economy really transforming. We are aiming at improving ease of doing business, because that's what is very much needed given the number of FTAs India has signed. India really needs now to improve its ease of doing business so that the FTAs could be potentially exploited. So that's where I think the government will focus on.
Right. And do you think all the FTAs that we have signed so far and FTAs we're looking forward to sign in, the next couple of years, what should be the focus of the budget to sort of, set the base at the ground so that these FTAs can start performing for Indian manufacturers and, services providers to sort of, start the kind of results that India is hoping the FTAs will deliver?
Right. See, the thing is, the reason behind we are signing FTAs is to, one, de-risk ourselves from certain geographies. Second is to move up the value chain. Because if you look at all the FTAs that they have signed so far, all the sectors are either towards the sectors which are extremely exposed to the US market, like marine and textile and auto parts, and also in the electronics, semiconductors, which are high value add manufacturing sectors. So I think what the government will do is, one, is to ensure that we empower our manufacturing sectors through ease of doing business, providing the right ecosystem so that they can help in efficiencies and higher productivity. Second will be the MSME sector, because this remains at the core of all manufacturing, exports, and job creation. And I think the third will be, and I wish this happens, is more focus on R&D. Because if you want to move up the value chain, you really need to spend a lot on innovation and R&D. Today, India has one of the least amount allocated for R&D among its peers as well as the advanced nations. So this is where I think the government will focus on going forward, and should also. And let's see if the government actually aims in R&D as well this time.
In fact, just before you joined, we were discussing R&D. I was, talking to another guest about, of course, India's, abysmal record as far as R&D investments are concerned, 0.64% of the GDP. And of course, the private sector investment in that area also being, in that area where it is nowhere close to where it should be. So my question to you is, do you think companies, as far as, incentivizing the private enterprises to invest in R&D is concerned, do you think they're being rightly incentivized? If not, how can the government do that?
This will be a space for mostly private sectors to play in, to be very honest. But honestly speaking, I think government has also done a fantastic job. If you look at many of the innovations that India has been very successful in, be it UPI, the tech stack, and all these are basically government initiatives. So the government has done its bit in improving the technology front, ensuring that the innovation government, the economy is digitally advanced, and its economy is also driven by digital transformation. Now is the time where the government will want the private sector to invest in, because at the end of the day, be it smart manufacturing, be it in the GCCs providing more AI-led services or solutions, this is where the private sector has to come in. And what the government can do is build an ecosystem where they can bring in maybe a lot of the collaborations with the universities, bring in more policies which involves more of the young population to get into these more research skill, basically focus on skill, AI skills, so that the huge workforce that we are looking into, they are more tech-enabled and can take advantage of those opportunities that is coming our way. And now that the FTAs are being signed, this will create a lot of opportunity as well, because if you look at all the FTAs, there's quite a few are focusing on digitally advanced technologies, security, cyber. So I think there's a lot of opportunity being created. Now is the time how quickly we can tap into this. And I think private sector has to take a lead here.
private sector has to take a lead here. Rohit, I hope you heard Dr. Majumdar's response to my question on what can be done to encourage the private sector to invest in R&D.
No, I partly agree with Dr. Majumdar, but not fully. I think the government has done a bit, and to be honest, the digital public infrastructure credit goes completely to the government, and so that they've really done well. But just as we saw with the economy and pre the 1991, if the government is the only actor that has all the responsibility to undertake R&D, it will never happen. You need to unleash the animal spirits essentially in the private sector, right? And the private sector investments in R&D will never happen until that animal spirit is kind of unleashed, which means that whatever is shackling them, whether it is the government taking us weighing in too strongly on, as I gave the example of investments coming into IIT incubators, etc., or otherwise, whenever there is that kind of gatekeeping or checking, it will slow down. So I think one of the most important things is that if we want to do more R&D, we should not just see government as the only MyBap, so to speak, that has to do R&D. And if you look at more systematically, why does the Indian private sector does not invest as much? Because there's clearly a problem. In the US, in China, you see this happening massively. And that is the reason why they have moved ahead. Because if only the government is investing, you cannot have that scale. And we do sort of compliment ourselves on the patents and the papers that come out of India, but they're nowhere close to what comes out of the US and even China now, right? So I think maybe a deeper, I think some studies have possibly also been done, but maybe we need to step back and see what's happening and then fix it. I don't think that we are on the right track right now.
Right. Mr. Arora, let me come to you because PLIs, especially in areas like semiconductor, mobile phone manufacturing, these are some areas where, this complaint that Rohit has about, the lack of, investment in R&D, and which is a legitimate complaint, by the way. But as far as PLIs are concerned, in certain areas, like I mentioned, there can't be a complaint because the government has been doing quite a lot. A lot of incentives have been provided. What, in your opinion, will be some of the areas which we were talking about earlier where we would see this investment going in?
No, I think I fully agree with what Rupki was saying, and also what Rohit is trying to indicate. See, if you look at PLI as a production link incentive, which is given on the output. And what we are talking about is an R&D incentive given to companies which are incubating, which do not have clarity on what the product is going to be. Someone has to back them that they are on the right track of technology. And tomorrow they'll become big because we have seen the proof of concept outside India. And that will bring the resilient supply chain and the value chain investment, which I was talking about. So I think that's one area on several fronts. And government is doing, it's not like government is not doing. Government has come up with a critical mineral roadmap recently. And that's something which is critical for our battery value chain, solar supply chain, which is the polysilicon, quartz, correct, all those things. And similarly, semiconductors, as you spoke about. So those areas government is trying and doing a bit. But I agree, there is a lot more, or there has to be a certain set of budget allocated to certain companies for R&D. Let them fail, let them also grow and become big. I think then only we will see some of these are becoming or having our BYD movement. I think that's what being called these days.
Yeah, that possibility to fail. And of course, to still be able to, come back, have that support which enterprises expect from the government should be there. Having said that, I'm joined by Mr. Saket Mehra now, partner, automotive practice, GT Bharat. Mr. Mehra, welcome. Good morning. What are your expectations from the budget, Mr. Mehra? Let's get you started with that. And then, of course, we will talk about the automobile sector in particular.
So I think, Abhishek, if we look at, and I was listening to all the panelists, it's going to be a very proactive budget. That's what it looks like, with a lot of announcements expected to be to push really India on the global roadmap. I think if we look at from an automotive standpoint, to your question, this is one industry which is at the peak of its transformation, be it from an energy independence standpoint, be it from an automation standpoint, or be it from a preserving the forex, the crude oil more importantly. So three asks which generally has come out when we have interacted with our clients in the sector. One is how do we see the rural growth, the demand growth going up for automobiles? And I think calendar year 25 was a phenomenal year as far as the demand growth is concerned, both for the passenger vehicles as well as for the two-wheelers in the rural market. In fact, the rural demand was much higher than what it came out in the urban market. So some kind of incentives, some kind of schemes, rural schemes, as got announced in budget 2025, are hopefully expected to go up further. This will further make the rural population more resilient, will make the propensity to consume much higher. So that's the first ask in terms of the higher allocation towards the rural schemes. Second, if we look at, and I was listening to the conversation around R&D or making manufacturing, I think this is the most thrust which needs to be given in terms of how do we make India as a one global capability center when it comes to advanced manufacturing and advanced engineering. In past, we have seen schemes for PLI in the automotive space. We have also seen ACC schemes. Maybe there could be a chance for us as a country to really look at the different version of these schemes, maybe a version 2 of these schemes, which allows more amount of investments to come up, which allows more amount of local value addition to happen. Because in the previous scheme, there have been some challenges with respect to achieving these objectives. So maybe announcements around critical rare earth metals or further relaxing the norms of the customs duty, as we saw in the previous budget, is expected to take place to really make manufacturing very robust. Third is more importantly, how do we de-risk ourselves from the export potential that we have? And here I would like to really talk about the auto component exports, which is a big 80 billion opportunity for us. Almost 30% gets exported to different markets, predominantly North America and the European nations. North America, we've seen how the global tariffs are shaping up, which is posing a challenge. So really, maybe some announcements around how do we look at providing incentives to the exporters or manufacturers and exporters of auto components, really looking at different markets, giving or having some insights about how the FTAs are going to now get signed up with countries around ASEAN or the Africa market, because that's a big potential. That's a big potential. So I think these are the big three asks, if I were to summarize: rural growth, manufacturing inputs, as well as the export potential.
Right. Bunch of interesting points there. Let's quickly at least talk about one more before I move to the next guest.
Sure.
And that is, of course, about the FTAs that you were referring to. I mean, all of what we saw happening in the last few weeks has made the automobile sector especially exciting, because of multiple changes which are happening, in the automobile sector. Of course, EVs coming in, hybrid vehicles becoming more and more mainstream. And then, of course, these FTAs being signed, especially the one with the EU, wherein, the customs duty on vehicles which are manufactured in Europe has been brought down and will eventually be brought down to 10%. Do you think Indian markets, Indian automobile manufacturers are ready to compete with their global peers?
Well, certainly they are. I mean, if we look at in terms of the more value-added products coming in from the Indian manufacturers, certainly it's going to be very competitive with respect to the the other origin products. But at the same time, we really have to, Abhishek, look into how our penetration of electric vehicles more importantly go up. We are currently roughly around 8% if we look at, which is fairly low as compared to what we had aspired to be by 2030, or what even the other leading economies of the world are having. So I think this is where my point was in terms of how do we make India as a core manufacturing hub, invest more into deep dive technology-enabled manufacturing, look at advanced manufacturing capabilities, provide incentives to the companies for the companies to come and manufacture in India for the world. So that's really what's going to be focused, I believe, from a budget standpoint.
Okay. Now I have economist Mithali Nikor joining me of Nikor Associates. Ms. Nikor, thank you so much for taking out the time and talking to us.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank
the
you,
Indian
Abhishek.
economy is, very nicely set up, fourth straight year, where we are one of the world's fastest growing economy. In fact, the fastest growing emerging economy, major economy. Inflation is under control. what do you think the focus for the finance minister in this budget is likely to be in that case?
So I think, Abhishek, this is what the economic survey has said, that we're in a
Yeah.
Goldilocks economy. And, this is really the time when we should be going ahead and thinking about growth, and we should be thinking about new areas. We should be thinking about innovation. We should be thinking about technology. But we are forced to think about one thing every day since the 2nd of April, which is President Donald Trump. So we've been thinking about him all the time. And even in this budget preparation, I'm pretty sure that, our government would have put together a package that helps us achieve something which I'm terming pretty much in this season as economic security. And this economic security has several components. I mean, if you think about it, one obvious component is, of course, defense. And we do need to increase our defense spending. We do need to look at, diversifying our defense spending, investing domestically in defense capabilities and defense MSMEs, but also looking at, different markets from where we can look at our defense equipment. But the second aspect is really strengthening our supply chains and looking at diversification in our supply chains, where we are linking with different countries. And the start has been made with the India-EU FTA, the India-UK FTA, and even with Australia, UAE. We've really put that forward. But going forward, we have to also think about innovation. A very important component of this economic security is really innovation. What is that one product or one service that India makes? Say, for example, if it's IT, then within IT, can we actually look at the onslaught of AI and say, no, India will weather that storm, and we will be resilient to that. So we have to bring in the innovation into each of the sectors where we have a competitive advantage.
Right, and that AI storm that you're talking about, one of the biggest problems India will have to address and solve, and perhaps we should have something related to that in the budget, we may not, is, of course, the jobs losses that we're talking about, because we're seeing, every other day you open the newspaper and you're listening about Amazon firing so many thousand and other big tech companies firing so many other thousands. So point is that there is a job loss scenario that we're discussing every time we talk about AI. Do you think that could also be a focus area for the government in this budget?
So I think, Abhishek, the way the economic survey has dealt with this issue is extremely practical, and also very, very, I would say, practical for India's perspective, very pragmatic, because it has said that, look, let's look at AI as any other technology. We have to look at the diffusion of AI through India, and that will take some amount of time. So there is time for us to prepare. The second thing the economic survey has said, that we have to look at applications AI. We don't have to necessarily invest in creating large language models which are Indian made, get LLMs that are available across the world. But at the same time, using those LLMs, can we create certain unique applications which are then spearheaded by our IT companies and by our startups, and really distinguish ourselves globally using that applications AI? And honestly, in my view, when we look at AI and we look at labor productivity, as an economist, I would always say that any technology has the potential to improve labor productivity, but we need skilling. We need the youth of
I think we lost her there. Rohit, let me come to you.
Yeah.
And talk about the AI storm that Ms. Nikor was referring to before she got disconnected. But what is your opinion on, of course, the kind of job losses that we are seeing, especially in the middle management? What are we going to see, and how could, through the budget, perhaps the government be better prepared for the scenario which is likely to occur, in the years going forward?
No, and I just want to begin with, before Mithali disconnected for a bit, that I agree with her that any technology has an impact on labor productivity. And, ultimately, if we are able to get it right, it will sort of improve the frontier on which the Indian economy is. Having said that, I think there's a bit of a distinction between the last economic survey and this economic survey. In the last economic survey, there was a last chapter on AI and labor.
Yeah.
And which was very alarmist, wherein basically they said that this is like, the industrial revolution movement, where we can create a huge class of haves and have-nots, wherein wealth gets concentrated. A few people who are equipped to take up the AI, this thing will do well, and the others will suddenly find themselves very disenfranchised and out of jobs, etc. And what India really needs is what are called shepherding institutions to make sure that we are able to migrate people quickly and adapt to this technology. And this economic survey has taken a slightly more balanced or kind of an approach. Having said that, I think the answer is somewhere in the middle, because unlike any other technology, this tech is moving through society too fast. Not enough time, I think, to adapt if we don't do it quickly and well and on priority. So I feel that two things need to be done. One, and I think this is already on the government's radar, that how do you sort of make sure that the tech diffuses widely and don't create this class of haves and have-nots, then people who use it and understand it and people who don't. But the second, I think, which is very important, is that this divide will happen no matter how hard and quickly we try to do that diffusion. So we need to invest in our educational and skilling ecosystem to help people adapt. And unfortunately, and I had written about this in the last budget, the education and skilling incentives that were put money behind, they were very small and they were not as significant. And I'm hoping that this budget gets it right, because we can't afford to let that go, because the impact can be huge. And yeah, let me stop there.
Right. And not just that, India also has a problem of scale. We're talking about millions of young Indians, who will be needing these jobs, will be joining the employment force year after year going forward. Ms. Nikor, before you got disconnected, you were, of course, talking about, some of the things which I was discussing with Rohit. And so if you'd like to complete your thought, and then, of course, we will move forward.
No, thanks, Abhishek. I think Rohit and I can always meet on our weekly dinner parties and continue the discussion for sure. But, to complete the viewers, I think what is important is that, when we think about AI and when we think about employability, the way to think about AI is to think about employability, because going forward, there are going to be a number of new job roles created. And India is not just an employer, an employee supplier for Indian markets, but for the world. The labor supply that India produces is going to be going all over the world and working. So it is important that we set up international educational institutions here, we set up, skilling institutions here, and we look at AI diffusion from that point of view as well, that this is a global skill, not only a national skill.
Right. Now, in a few minutes from now, of course, the finance minister will be heading to the parliament, where she will, start the budget proceedings. She will, start her speech. We will sort of course, decode what she says, what she presents in the budget immediately after. But before that, one important thing which must be on the finance minister's mind, and in fact, Ms. Nikor, you started with that, and that is, of course, what's happening geopolitically. You only talked about Donald Trump, but there's a lot else which is going on in the world. So let's talk for a little while about, the implications, of the geopolitics and some of the things which perhaps the finance ministers can do to, alleviate to some extent, to whatever extent possible, through the budget. Do you think we're likely to see some announcement related to, what's happening in the world of geopolitics, and perhaps some of that reflecting in the budget?
Absolutely. So what we've already heard is that this year, part B of the budget, which is generally the, forward-looking part of the budget, the growth, part of the budget, is actually going to take up a space in the budget speech, that information already coming through. And essentially that means that she's going to outline India's competitive advantages, those sectors in which we think we're going to do much better than other countries, quite clearly in part B of her speech. And I also feel that there is potential for fiscal instruments to come in to actually assuage some of the tariff related concerns. So one of them, of course, being a trade finance package package for MSMEs, which we are expecting should come in this time. And we are also expecting a lot more investments coming into the logistics sector, because again, the logistics sector is one which is actually accounting for almost 8 to 9% of our manufacturing cost as per the last estimates. It has been massively reduced from 13% of GDP to 9%, but we're still expecting that the target will, be 4 to 5%. And for that, again, a massive investment package expected. But more than this, I think the free trade agreements which are coming in, there's a need for preparedness around the free trade agreements. If we have to, that Indian manufacturing needs to adapt to. Some of the large manufacturers we've spoken to, especially companies like Shahi Exports, etc., in the textile space, they've been exporting to the EU for several years, and they've actually re-engineered their supply chains quite a bit. But for some of the medium-sized players who want to get into this opportunity and into this business, there will be a need for preparedness on the regulatory compliance, and possibly for that also some relief may be provided.
Right. No, that's an important question. I mean, this one thing, it's one challenge, of course, to sign the FTAs. The other one is whether Indian enterprises are set up in such a way and are ready to take advantage of those FTAs. So on that note, let me welcome the CEO of J Airspace, Venkatesh Mudragulla. Thank you, Venkatesh, for taking out the time and talking to us.
Very happy to be here.
So let that be my first question to you. Do you think, organizations like yours, of course, in the manufacturing of airspace and airlines-related equipment, but do you think Indian industry, Indian startups are ready to take advantage of the kind of FTAs that the government has been signing with other governments?
No, I think the latest one with the EU has been a great boost to the industry. While tariffs is one thing, second thing also is EU will hopefully open up a lot of defense space as well. It is the time the tier ones and the tier twos in India capitalize the EU defense market, which is also seem to be growing very, very aggressively. Having said that, I think today we have a lot of exposure to the US market as well. I think if there's something that we can move in that direction, which can help the industry, that would be very, very helpful in taking the growth of manufacturing of aerospace in the country.
US and India's relationship, especially business relationship with US, remains really volatile at this point in time. I mean, we've been talking about a trade deal forever now, it seems. Nothing's happened on that front. There have been tariffs since then. So apart from US, perhaps there could be a discussion as far as US is concerned. It's subject to a lot of other things. Having said that, what are your expectations from the budget, Venkatesh?
I think two large things, Abhishek. One thing, as you might be aware, aerospace industry is something which is very capital intensive. It has very long gestation cycles and long lead times for return on capital. And it also requires a lot of upfront investments. We have seen a lot of PLI schemes across the sectors, including some in the space tech as well. But we are really hoping we would get some sort of PLI backing in this budget for the aerospace component manufacturing. I think that's a growing industry in the country with the objective of the government to improve self-reliance in defense and aerospace. I think that will be a huge boost to the industry. That's one. Second thing, we just spoke about it, amidst the trade tensions and the tariff wars that are going on, anything that can the budget provide, which will incentivize, in a way, export competitiveness of the manufacturers here, whether it's through export incentive schemes or maybe helping reduce the embedded domestic costs, that will be really helpful. Those are, I think, primarily two things that I'm looking forward to in this budget.
Right. And the incentives that you're talking about, are you looking at those incentives on the input side or on the output side? Because, of course, you were talking about long gestation period, especially in your sector.
To an extent on both, Abhishek, but primarily on the export ones because of the...
No, the reason I asked that question is because if you look at the other PLI schemes in other sectors, the schemes that we have in place so far, they're mostly output linked.
That's true. That's true. We're also looking at output linked ones because as we grow the exports from here, amidst, again, the trade sanctions that we're looking at, anything that can really boost the export competitiveness would be very, very helpful.
All right. Ms. Nicole, let me come to you. And some of the things that you were talking about, Venkatesh also talked about those. And now, as far as the part B of the budget is concerned, structurally, we know it's divided in two parts. So you are an economist. Why don't, for our viewers, you explain to us, what is the significance of part B? Part A, of course, we know is all about, the allocations, etc. What is the significance of part B?
So I think, it's so nice that part B is getting the spotlight, because I think part A is where a lot of the accounting and statistical experts come in and, they do the numbers magic. But part B is the vision. Where do we see India in 2047? And we see, of course, India as a Viksit Bharat. But what is the roadmap that in part B? What are going to be some of the pathways that India will adopt? And as I said, for us this time, part B, I'm really hoping we see something on economic security. We've achieved a growth rate of 7.4% this year. This makes us the fastest growing economy in the world for 10 years in a row. So for a decade, India has posted this kind of a growth. But are we really creating global institutions? Are we really creating global competitiveness? Are we really bringing in that level of innovation which we can, given that we are today the third largest economy in the world, or at least on the path of being the third largest economy in the world? This is exactly what we are expecting to see in part B. The strategy, the vision, and concrete actions in terms of specific sectors which will be prioritized in the longer term.
Right. Mr. Mehra, let me come to you, because Ms. Nikor raised an important question there, and that is, are we ready, and are we at par with our global peers? Okay, I think Mr. Saket Mehra has left us. Let me take that question to Venkatesh. Venkatesh, yours, of course, is a complicated space. There is competition there as well. And, what is preferred, at least so far, have been the established players. But the kind of innovation that, startups like yours are coming up with, any and all governments need to take notice of that and, of course, encourage such innovation. So how do you think, apart from incentives, can the government encourage startups like yours?
I think one very important thing that we'll also have to focus is skill, Abhishek. Specifically to the aerospace sector. While aerospace industry is a large and old industry from in India, and especially from a private sector perspective, it's still a very nascent industry. We have been in the private sector in this industry only for the last 15 years or so. So we still have very, very raw talent that's available in the country. If there are skill incentives that we can provide, where we can help academia to start producing skills that can help the industry to use right out of the academia, that will be really helpful. And any incentive that can promote this would be really helpful to increase the aerospace manufacturing in the country. Having said that, while this particular industry has been largely for the established players, but today, if you see, there are so many emerging startups that are happening both in aerospace and space tech, especially in the country, which I think are the new age manufacturers that we are seeing, not only this phenomenon in India, but also across the globe, where private sector is very, very actively participating in these industries.
All right. Now I have Mr. Akhil Chana, partner Direct Tax, GT Bharat, joining us. Mr. Chana, thank you for taking out the time and talking to us.
Yeah, hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. You hear me?
Yes, I can. All right. So my question to you, is there anything that you're expecting on the direct tax front this year? Because last year, of course, we saw some massive announcements. This year around, are you expecting anything on that front?
Yes, I think there are many expectations like any year, especially from a common man, middle class taxpayers. They have a long pending list with consider. So looks like this year we will see the light to the demands which middle class taxpayers has been asking for. But economic survey is not indicating that, because economic survey gives a clear indication that personal tax system is more clearer and stable. With the new tax regime being default, the government is not looking for many changes, but for long-term consistency. And I think with strong direct tax growth, the government can self-finance without putting any burdens on the middle class taxpayers also. So we don't see many positive, but any adverse changes on that side of it. But having said that, the expectations are there that if the government wants new tax regime to be 100%, as I give you some data, that till last year, 75% of the people have been filing their tax returns using a new tax regime. Still, there are 25% of the population of the country follows the old tax regime because of the exemptions and deductions which are available. To make new tax regime more lucrative, the government should allow some eligible deductions, essential deductions like medical insurance, life insurance premium, interest on housing loan as some deductions under the new tax regime, with increase on the standard deductions as well, and then some compliances which government should look into. As Nicole also said that under the Part B, as we are moving, we've been signing a lot of free trade agreement and all, but we need to build up the ecosystem so that people, even as you see that under the free trade agreement, there are a lot of mobile population which will come to work in India. Are the government working in that direction? Yes. I think the first step which government has taken is the new labor codes. They've brought in the new labor codes which will change the framework. And it's been 100 years. There's nothing which has happened on the labor code side of it. The government is simplifying that. But on the compliances also, the government should do a lot of need to take a lot of steps to make it more simplified, less litigative. There's a Supreme Court judgment which everyone knows, which recently created a lot of hue and cry at the industry at large, Tiger Global. So the government should come out with more clarity and less ambiguity when they are asking the Europe or UK or other countries to come and work, and vis-a-vis India is also going under the free trade agreement. So these are in a nutshell looks like the few expectations both at a corporate level or at an individual level. One more thing I want to put emphasis here, as we are fighting with a big issue of pollution, the government should do something to motivate people to buy electric vehicle. Till 2023, there was a deduction which was available under the Income Tax Act under Section 80EB of 1.5 lakh rupees. However, after that deduction is no more available, and the government should reinstate that deduction with a higher limit so that people get motivated to move towards EV vehicle. And even at the corporate level, the government should bring more clarity, giving direct benefits if they're contributing towards research and development or adopting some towards that EV platform, and even some CSR initiatives so that indirectly contributes towards a greener India.
Right. Venkatesh, let me come to you, because Atmanirbharta, especially in the defense sector, Atmanirbharta in the areas of manufacturing our weapons, missiles, aircraft, is something which the government has been talking about throughout its multiple terms since it's come to power since 2014. It's only now we are seeing, many startups emerge in space tech and, drone and other areas. Now, if you had a wish list as a founder, and if you could take it to the Prime Minister, if you could take it to the Finance Minister, that, this is what we would need to make India Atmanirbhar in the defense sector, what will that wish list have? And what are some of the challenges that you've faced so far, if you could talk to us about that?
So I think we spoke some of the expectations that we had earlier, Abhishek, but I think what's also very important is, while a lot of schemes have been being announced, what we should also right now focus on is speed of execution of these and how quickly we can help some of these incentives take shape. For example, things like how can we speed up the GST reimbursements and any other export incentives that are promised. How can we quicken the process also will really help. See, because some of these policies, if they are not implemented effectively, that can actually put a lot of burden on a small supplier in terms of their working capital cycles. That's one. Second thing, while we have been focusing a lot on manufacturing, I think there have been continued focus on R&D, which is also very, very important in this sector, right, to improve self-reliance. So if government can continue to back the R&D incentives and maybe make them simpler in terms of process and compliance, that will be very, very helpful.
All right. Thanks for that, Venkatesh. Now I'm joined by C. Veeramani, Director and RBI Chair Professor, CDS. Thank you, Mr. Veeramani. Can you hear me, sir?
Thank you. Yes, I can hear you.
Right. What are your expectations from the budget? Because in a few minutes from now, the finance minister will, of course, start her budget speech, her 9th straight budget speech. What should the country be expecting from the finance minister?
Yeah, so the broader context is that the economy is doing well at the macroeconomy level. The growth outlook is positive, and potential growth we are thinking about 7%. Inflation is under control, and current account deficit is less than 1% of GDP. So all that looks good, and fiscal deficit is under control. But the major challenges that we are facing now is, one is, of course, geopolitical uncertainty. There is weak global tailwinds, and that can create some uncertainties and further weakening of rupee and such challenges coming from the external front. And another important challenge could be if in case the AI boom is not going to leading to productivity gains, that could lead to financial contagion, and there could be a correction happening because of that, and India could be affected like other countries in that respect. And a third important challenge, which I think need to be taken into account, is the fiscal populism. So fiscal populism can have an adverse impact because it could crowd out productive private investment. So I think these are the important challenges that the budget need to take into account. And I think what need to be done, I think what my wish list is like, there should be a continued capital expenditure growth that should be happening, even though I would wish that there should be a compositional shift in that capital expenditure. Rather than spending more on road, highways, and railways, I think there is a need to have a compositional shift in that. Particularly, I think there is a need to focus on cities, because cities are growth hubs. So if you want to create quality jobs, well-paying jobs, that happens in the city. So the cities have to become livable cities. There are congestions, there are traffic issues, all such things that is a big disincentive for firms to come to cities, and firms agglomerate, particularly productive firms agglomerate in larger cities. So there should be a focus on that. The other important focus, I think, in capital expenditure should be on investment which can lead to improvement in export competitiveness, because India still has a lot of potential for improve its export share in world market. We are accounting for only 2% of goods export in world trade. That should increase. For that, government should invest more on infrastructure that could improve export competitiveness, like for example, modernization of ports and warehousing facilities, cold storage facilities, etc., which leads to more export competitiveness in various products. The other big area which I am thinking that the government should do is on deregulation. So there are all kind of controls, process simplification, policy changes. All these need to be done both to incentivize domestic investment as well as foreign investment, and to improve export competitiveness. With that policies, with that keeping that in mind, we need to do deregulation, and this deregulation need to be done not only at the central government level. It need to be done at the state government, and more importantly at the local level, because there are all these controls there at the local level.
Mr. Veeramani, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you because you've raised multiple important points. I have another guest joining me. Let me introduce him. And I'll come back to you, especially on falling rupee and deregulation, because deregulation is something which we're likely to see the finance minister address, because we are told there are multiple reports out there indicating that the finance minister could be talking about and could be focusing on part B of the budget a lot more during her speech. But before we talk about that, let me quickly welcome equity expert Mayuresh Joshi. He's the head of research, William O'Neill India. Mr. Joshi, thank you so much for taking out the time and talking to us.
Morning to you. Pleasure.
Mr. Joshi, let me just get you started. I'm sure you've been listening to some of the other panelists here. But before anything, let me just ask you about your expectations from the budget.
So I think it should be a well-balanced, laid out budget. I think the 3-4 important aspects that the markets are looking for, specifically in terms of allocations, are going to be how much of a capital expenditure outlay will the budget probably have in its fine print. Large expectations is around 12 to 12.25 lakh crores in terms of the capex outlay. In terms of the fiscal number, I think a large part of the consensus is for a 4.2% number as we head into the next year. And expectations in terms of revenue receipts, both from direct tax as well as GST collections, should mirror that 9 to 10% nominal GDP growth, which is expected. Now, specifically from a market standpoint, I think the market borrowing, the net market borrowing, is going to be a key figure. And whether any tweaks are expected, both in terms of SVT or LTCG in particular, when it probably comes to foreign investors, because the need of capital flows, specifically from the FI/FPI side, is probably the need of the money.
Would that be unfair on the domestic investors?
No, so it will be.
By the way, the finance minister has said in the past, have been holding the market in place, especially amid the kind of global uncertainty that we've been noticing.
No, so to a certain extent, I think it should be rationalized for the domestic investors as well. I think the tax-free limit is something that can be inched higher, which will benefit a large part of the retail.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. All right. So, and as far as LTSG and CTSG are concerned, are you hoping anything would be announced by the finance minister?
So I think the markets, every budget hope that there, as I said, is some element of a threshold increase for domestic investors and some tweaks when it probably comes to the foreign portfolio investors.
Right. And looking at the markets right now, of course, it's an unusual day for the markets to be open, but since budget is being presented, markets are. And well, apart from the metal index, if you look at Nifty, it's just about 60 odd points up. The market is just sort of, carefully watching. Is that what you will say?
Oh, absolutely. And I think a consensus that's getting built up is that defense outlay in terms of Atmanirbharta might actually be higher than what has been pegged in the previous budgets. So 15-20% increase in defense allocation is something that the markets are probably looking out for. At the same time, I think any announcements, as I said, in terms of what happens to LTCG in particular, I think is something to be monitored very, very closely. And the three key numbers, one in terms of the overall capex spend, in terms of the net market borrowing program, and the fiscal deficit number in terms of the glide path.
Right. Mr. Veeramani, before I cut you short and, told you that I'll be coming back to you again, what you were talking about was, of course, a falling rupee and deregulation. So let's first talk about the falling rupee and, some of the reasons behind that. And do you think it's a good thing, especially because, considering what's happening for the Indian manufacturers, etc., a rupee where it is not such a bad thing?
Yeah, it is not a bad thing from the point of view of export competitiveness. Particularly, we faced this 50% tariff from the US. The depreciation gave us some flexibility, some offsetting advantage from that. So that way, it is a good thing, and also it is not a not a bad thing because the inflation is under control. So when there is a depreciation, otherwise there could be imported inflation into the country, which is not happening, which is not a big worry now because domestically the inflation is under control. So from both these point of view, one is export competitiveness and inflation point of view, it is not a big problem. It's actually a good thing from export competitiveness point of view. But what it creates is, the capital inflow, particularly foreign direct investment and other forms of capital inflow could be affected because of that, which we need. Because if we want to achieve export competitiveness, we need more FDI coming. So this is happening, the depreciation is happening because of capital outflow. The capital is moving out of the country. So that is why it is happening. From that point of view, it is not a good thing. Also from balance of payment of perspective, because we have a current account deficit, and in goods trade we have a major deficit, and the surplus in services are not sufficient to cover that deficit. So then we need surplus in the capital account. So in the recent times, what we did is that we used our foreign exchange reserves to meet that deficit in the balance of payment. So the capital outflow is worrying from that point of view, and the depreciation is a reflection of that outflow. So we need to reverse that. We need foreign direct investment to come, and FPI flows also to come to the country from a balance of payment perspective.
Right. And a live update is coming in. Prime Minister Modi has reached the Parliament. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will start her budget speech sharply at 11 a.m. We will, of course, bring you those visuals of the Finance Minister and Prime Minister shortly. But in the meantime, let's continue about some of the things we've been discussing here, because this, of course, is going to be an interesting budget. Not just because it's being presented on a Sunday, but also because some of the expectations from the budget. Now, let's quickly. Mr. Shashank Udpa is a SEBI registered. Mr. Udpa, can you hear me? Right, wonderful. I thought I lost you there. There was some disturbance in my app. Having said that, what are your expectations from the budget? And then, of course, we will talk about LTSG, CDSG, because as far as expectations from budget on that front are concerned, well, year after year, that's something which has remained a constant.
Yeah, I think everyone wants tax cuts, right? I think that is something we all need. But one thing that was very clear from the document that GOI had released, that we need to start moving more into manufacturing and reduce our dependence on services. I think that is something I'm also looking at, and that's something that I'll be very bullish on, right? Looking at the infrastructure push, I think one of the key things that they're also doing with respect to freight and logistics is the high-speed corridors. That is something I think we've increased drastically from 550 kilometers to almost, we've gone up to 5,300 kilometers by this December. And I believe that their target is to actually reach 26,000 kilometers by FY33 in the high-speed corridors. A lot of things were outlined in that economic survey document with respect to freight and logistics, and reducing the logistics cost will actually help everything in India to become much better, right? As Dr. Veeramani had also said, that more FDI comes in, it's actually better for our country. And with all these groundwork being laid out, I think that is something that will be very bullish for India as well in a 5 to 7 year kind of time frame.
Right. Mr. Joshi, we talked about the equity market a little bit, about LTSG and CDSG. Let's also talk about something which was making headlines just a day ago. In fact, even now is something which is being really discussed. And that is, of course, the kind of crash that we saw in the commodities market, in the precious metal segment, and then, of course, in the metal segment in general. But the kind of crash that we saw worth $5.5 trillion in the gold and silver prices. The market remains volatile. What would you advise? What would you say? How should people who are looking to invest in gold and silver should take that fall as?
No, so as a general rule, in terms of creating a portfolio, around 5 to 10% of your portfolio should be based in terms of a gold or silver investment, and that should continue as a SIP for a longer period or extended period of time. Now, what has really happened is that the underlying trends are still very consistent. There is central bank buying as far as gold and silver is concerned. There is the debasement of fiat currencies, as we are probably seeing. The bond yields are a reflection in terms of government running elevated fiscal deficits. And the EV demand, the data center demand, will keep the demand for silver as a trend remaining impact. Now, what went up in 2 months was significant, and therefore I think some element of bubble creation stroke profit booking was expected to come through. But I think the base factors probably still remain far more consistent in terms of a longer term structural trend. And therefore, I think a 5 to 10% allocation through SIPs is something that investors should probably continue doing.
Right. So no doubling down. Just make sure that you're not too excited when you're investing in the markets. Remain cautious and, of course, diversify. Okay. Shashank, your thoughts on what's happening in the gold and silver prices, gold and silver market, and, of course, what's happening in the metal segment in general?
Yeah, I think, look, there are some structural movements happening in gold and silver, which are good. But then there is also retail FOMO participation kicking in. And that has created a huge premium, which basically fell down right now, right? Gold long-term is obviously great. Silver is also good with respect to all its use cases. But whenever such things happen, the FOMO of retail participation comes in very heavy. And it was at unsustainable levels, right? The deviation from the moving averages was way too high, and there was a mean reversion that was supposed to happen, and it did happen. And a lot of people, I think, in India have actually lost money doing this quick in and out kind of a system. And as Mayuresh Joshi said, I think it's better to just have it as a hedge for a long-term thing in your portfolio rather than playing these short-term bets, because these short-term bets are not going to change anyone's life. So I think a balanced approach is much better any day, anytime.
Right. Mr. Veeramani, we
Yes.
were talking about deregulation.
Yeah.
You did get to speak on it briefly, but I was joined by other guests, and I wanted to get their initial thoughts out of the way on the budget and their expectations. Now, let me come back to you and talk to you about deregulation. What kind of announcements are you expecting from the budget and the deregulation-related announcements? Which sectors are you expecting these in? Are we talking about customs, some kind of amnesty there, like we saw on the personal tax department last year? Or what are the kind of sectors we're talking about?
Yeah, one is the customs reform. I expect that to facilitate trade and to improve export competitiveness. That is one thing. The other one is that
primarily, what are the problems in that area as far as customs is concerned?
I think the time taken for trade in India compared to other countries is quite high because of the procedures, which are more complex than it is there in other countries. So there is possibility.
Mr. Veeramani, I'm sorry, I'll have to interrupt you. We have visuals coming in of the finance minister and the prime minister reaching the parliament. Viewers, take a look at these visuals. Shortly, in a few minutes from now, the finance minister will present her 9th budget. This will be her 9th straight budget. It is a record in itself. Shortly, in fact, in 13 minutes from now, it's 10:47, sharply at 11 a.m., she will start her budget speech. Visuals on your screen of the finance minister and the prime minister arriving at the parliament. Mr. Veeramani, please,
Yes.
go on, sir.
So generally, to reduce the cost of trading, particularly international trade, that is where the customs reforms are needed. And the other one is a correction of inverted tariff structure with the customs rate. Customs duties have an inverted tariff structure that need to be corrected, because right now we have a situation where tariffs for many of the inputs are higher than that of the final products. So in the previous budget, the finance minister have done certain attempts to correct this, and I hope that that process will continue for more number of products. So that is rationalization of tariff rates to correct inverted tariff structure, and I would expect generally lower tariff rates for intermediate goods and parts and components than for final products. There could be some tariff increase for final products, but there would be a significant tariff reduction for intermediate products, parts and components, which are needed for producing final goods. So that way you improve competitiveness and also correct the inverted tariff structure. So that is another thing that I expect. And if you have time, one more area where I think there should be an attempt is disinvestment.
Please go on, but before that, could you explain the inverted duty structure that you were talking about? Which sectors it is most likely to impact?
Mostly electronics. Even labor-intensive products like apparel, there is an inverted tariff structure. Electronics, electrical machinery, then many engineering products. So there are a number of areas where this is a problem, and that reduces the incentive for India has an advantage to produce here the final products because we have a large labor supply, particularly low-skilled labor. But if multinational companies have to come to India to make India as a base for global market, to produce in India and export from India for the world market, our tariff structure should be conducive for that. So right now, this inverted tariff structure is not giving that incentive. So that need to be corrected.
All right. All right. So in about 10 minutes from now, the finance minister will start with her speech, and I will request the guests for their concluding remarks. Of course, we will be joining you again, viewers, after the finance minister's budget speech, and we will decode the budget for you step by step. Sectors will be discussed, and we will let you know what this budget will mean for you once those announcements have been made by the finance minister. So if I can come to you, Mr. Joshi, first for your concluding remarks before, of course, we have to cut to the finance minister's speech, and then I will come to the other guests. Please, with you,
So
Mr.
from the
Joshi.
budget, I think negatives would be a substantial cut in terms of capital allocation or a substantial increase in terms of market borrowings. At the same time, I think if there is a guided path in terms of the fiscal deficit, as well as stability in terms of the capex program, as well as the market borrowings, along with some element of rationalization expected on LTCG, I think the markets will take it with both hands. But otherwise, I believe that it should be a well laid out, balanced budget.
Right. And I also have joining me now, Mr. Jaspreet Singh, partner and clients markets leader advisory GT Bharat. Mr. Singh, thank you so much. I would have given you more time, but considering we just have about 6-7 minutes between now and when the finance minister's speech starts, please let your opening remarks also include your concluding remarks.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me here. I think this is going to be a very pivotal budget if you were to move towards Atmanirbhar Bharat from an AI perspective. We've seen that AI is impacting our social, economic, everything that we do today is getting impacted by AI. So I would have a lot of expectations. I think the country has a lot of expectation, and we saw that in the economic survey also. From a GCC perspective, last year there were a lot of emphasis towards setting up GCC to tier 3 city perspective. And also I would expect a lot of announcements around infrastructure from an AI compute perspective. Thank you.
All right, Shashank.
Yeah, I think, I'm very pro India. So I think for the next 3 years, I think that is what the plan is for this budget, to lay out a plan for that. I think, as everyone said, capex is something all of us are looking for. As long as the government can do a lot of capex in good sectors that actually give some contribution to GDP, that is something I think not just India, but the whole world will be looking at. And I'm also very bullish for that. So hopefully that happens here, and we have some good reforms and good steps for the next 5 years.
Right. All right. Mr. Veeramani, your concluding remarks, please, sir.
So I expect that there would be substantial measures to improve export competitiveness of the country, particularly export competitiveness of goods and deregulation, and an important focus on AI, investment in AI, and increasing in the R&D expenditure, and also some effort towards a disinvestment of public sector enterprises, and a continuous expansion of capital expenditure with some compositional shift. So this is what I expect.
Briefly, that expansion in capital expenditure that you're talking about, the money for that, where do you see that coming from?
I think one way of getting that money is that the borrowing can increase without increasing fiscal deficit right now, because the cost of borrowing has now reduced for the government. So that's what the indicators are showing as discussed in the economic survey also. So even while we keep the debt to GDP ratio of 50%, I think there is room for that. And also some proceeds, the income that can be generated from disinvestment can be used for increasing capital expenditure.
Right. And we will shortly share the link, of course. In fact, right on this link, where you can watch the finance minister's speech. It's expected to start sharply at 11 a.m. In the meantime, We have some visuals of the finance minister and the prime minister having reached the parliament. We will start playing those visuals, and right after that, we will cut straight to the parliament and listen in what the finance minister has to say about the budget. The country is closely going to be listening in. Part B, we are told, of the budget is Part A, which is usually the case with budgets. So at this point in time, let me just share those visuals with you on the screen. And please keep watching the space, not just for the finance minister's speech, but immediately after that, I'll be joined by another set of panelists, stellar set of panelists who will decode the budget with me right here on Mint. So keep watching the space. On your screens now, the visuals of the finance minister and the prime minister reaching the parliament. Shortly after that, in fact, minutes after that, the finance minister will, of course, present her 9th straight budget. This is a record in itself. There have been very few finance ministers who have done this. In fact, none have 9 years in a row for 9 terms. Over 3 terms. She became the finance minister in 2019, and since then she has presented 9 budgets. This will be her 9th. And we were talking about this budget being slightly unusual because this is being presented on a Sunday. But some interesting budget trivia for you there. This is not the first budget which is being presented on a Sunday. Before this, the budget was presented on a Sunday under Prime Minister A.B. Vajpayee. The then Finance Minister Yashwant Sinha had presented the budget in 1999 on a Sunday on 28th of February. So after that, it's been quite some time. It's been 27 years that the budget will be presented on a Sunday. And that's, of course, because in 2017, the government decided to ensure that, the processes and, the execution of the policies and the announcements which will be made by the finance minister in the budget speech get implemented before the next financial year starts, that the budget gets presented on February 1st. And of course, rest of the time is used to do exactly that. So that is the reason the date has been fixed. And that is the reason, of course, the budget is being announced on a Sunday. And markets are open as well. In fact, let's quickly take a look before we cut to the finance minister's speech live to the parliament, what's happening in the markets. So markets, it seems, are watching the space very carefully. They're, of course, at this point in time, Nifty 50 is hovering in green, but just about 60 points above yesterday's close. And I am being told that in a minute from now, the finance minister will start talking, will start her speech. So we will be cutting to those visuals now.
माननीय अध्यक्ष जी।
आइटम नंबर 1, माननीय वित्त मंत्री श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमन जी। Item number 1.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table a copy each of the following papers, Hindi and English versions, under Article 281 of the Constitution, report for 2026 to 2031, Volume 1, main report of the 16th 2026-2031, Volume 2, annexures of the 16th Finance Commission. Number 3, explanatory memorandum as to the action taken on the recommendations contained in the above report.
Item number 2, माननीय वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमन जी।
Honorable Speaker, sir, on the sacred occasion of Magh Purnima and the birth anniversary of Guru Ravidas, I present the budget for the year 2026-2027. Since we assumed office 12 years ago, India's economic trajectory has been marked by stability, fiscal discipline, sustained growth, and moderate inflation. This is the result of conscious choices we have made, even in times heightened uncertainty and disruption. Our government, led by Honorable Prime Minister Modi, has decisively and consistently chosen action over ambivalence, reform over rhetoric, and people over populism. We have pursued far-reaching structural reforms, fiscal prudence and monetary stability, whilst maintaining a strong thrust on public investment. Keeping Atmanirbharta as a lodestar, we have built domestic manufacturing capacity, energy security, and reduced critical import dependencies. Simultaneously, we have ensured that citizens benefit from every action of the government, undertaking reforms to support employment generation, agricultural productivity, household purchasing power, and universal services to people. These measures have delivered a high growth rate of around 7% and helped us make substantial strides in poverty reduction and improvement in the lives of our people. Today, we face an external environment in which trade and multilateralism are imperiled and access to resources and supply chains are disrupted. New technologies are transforming production systems while sharply increasing demands on water, energy, and critical minerals. India will continue to take confident steps towards Viksit Bharat, balancing ambition with inclusion. As a growing economy with expanding trade and capital needs, India must also remain deeply integrated with global markets, exporting more and attracting stable long-term investment. As I begin Part A, I want to express my gratitude to the people for standing firmly with us as we forge our way together towards becoming one of the largest economies of the world. Our aim is to transform aspiration into achievement and potential into performance as we ensure that the dividends of growth reach every farmer, the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes, the nomads, the youth, the poor, and the women. In Vikasit Bharat Young Leaders Dialogue 2026, several innovative ideas were shared with our Prime Minister, which have inspired many of the proposals, making this a unique Yuva Shakti-driven budget. Our government's sankalp is to focus on our poor, underprivileged, and the disadvantaged. To deliver on this sankalp, and given that this is the first budget prepared in Kartavya Bhavan, we are inspired by three Kartavya. Our first Kartavya is to accelerate and sustain economic growth by enhancing productivity and competitiveness and building resilience to volatile global dynamics. Our second Kartavya is to fulfill aspirations of our people and build their capacity, making them strong partners in India's path to prosperity. Our third Kartavya, aligned with our vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, is to ensure that every family, community, region, and sector has access to resources, amenities, and opportunities for meaningful participation. This threefold approach is to sustain the momentum of structural reforms, continuous, adaptive, and forward-looking. Second, a robust and resilient financial sector is central to mobilizing savings, allocating capital efficiently, and managing risks. Third, cutting-edge technologies, including AI applications, can serve us as force multipliers for better governance. Reform Express. Our government has undertaken comprehensive reforms towards creating employment, boosting productivity, and accelerating growth. After the Prime Minister's announcement on Independence Day in 2025, over 350 reforms have been rolled out. This includes GST simplification, notification of labor codes, and rationalization of mandatory quality control orders. High-level committees have been formed, and in parallel, the central government is working with the state governments on deregulation and reducing compliance requirements. The Reform Express is well on its way and will maintain its momentum to help us fulfill our Kartavya. I now move to specific proposals. Under our first Kartavya, to accelerate and sustain economic growth, I propose interventions in 6 areas. 1. Scaling up manufacturing in 7 strategic and frontier sectors. 2. Rejuvenating legacy industrial sectors. 3. Creating champion MSMEs. 4. Delivering a powerful push for infrastructure. 5. Ensuring long-term security and stability. And 6. Developing city economic regions. Scaling up of manufacturing in 7 strategic and frontier sectors. Biopharma Shakti, meaning biopharma strategy for health advancement through knowledge, technology, and innovation. India's disease burden is observed to be shifting towards non-communicable diseases like diabetes, cancer, and autoimmune disorders. Biologic medicines are key to longevity and quality of life at affordable costs. To develop India as a global biopharma manufacturing hub, I propose the Biopharma Shakti with an outlay of 10,000 crores over the next 5 years. This will build the ecosystem for domestic production of biologics and biosimilars. The strategy will include a biopharma-focused network with 3 new national institutes of pharmaceutical education and research, popularly known as NIPERs, and upgrading 7 existing ones. It will also create a network of 1,000 accredited India clinical trials sites. We propose to strengthen the Central Drug Standard Control Organization to meet global standards and approve timeframes through and approval timeframes through a dedicated scientific review cadre and specialists. India Semiconductor Mission 1.0 expanded India's semiconductor sector capabilities. Building on this, we will launch ISM 2.0 to produce equipment and materials, design full-stack Indian IP, and fortify supply chains. We will also focus on industry-led research and training centers to develop technology and skilled workforce. The Electronics Components Manufacturing Scheme, launched in April 2025 with an outlay of 22,919 crores, already has investment commitments at double the targets. We propose to increase the outlay to 40,000 crores to capitalize on this momentum. A scheme for rare earth permanent magnets was launched in 2025 November. We now propose to support the mineral-rich states of Odisha, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu to establish dedicated rare earth corridors to promote mining, processing, research, and manufacturing. To enhance domestic chemical production and reduction import dependency and reduce import dependency, we will launch a scheme to support states in establishing 3 dedicated chemical parks through challenge route on a cluster-based plug-and-play model. Strong capital goods. Strong capital goods capability is a determinant of productivity and quality across different sectors. Towards building this capacity, I propose the following. High-tech tool rooms will be established by central public sector enterprises at 2 locations as digitally enabled automated service bureaus that locally design, test, and manufacture high-precision components at scale and at lower cost. 2, a scheme for enhancement of construction and infrastructure equipments will be introduced to strengthen domestic manufacturing of high value and technologically advanced CIE. This can range from lifts in a multi-storied apartment or firefighting equipment in multiplexes, large or small, and to tunnel boring equipments for building metros and high-altitude roads. I also propose a scheme for container manufacturing to create a globally competitive container manufacturing ecosystem with a budgetary allocation of 10,000 crores over a 5-year period. For the labor-intensive textile sector, I propose an integrated program with 5 subparts. 1, the National Fiber Scheme for self-reliance in natural fibers, such as silk, wool, and jute, man-made fibers, and new age fibers. Textile expansion and employment scheme to modernize traditional clusters with capital support for machinery, technology upgradation, and common testing and certification centers. 3, the National Handloom and Handicraft Program to integrate and strengthen existing schemes and ensure targeted support for weavers and artisans. Tex Eco Initiative to promote globally competitive and sustainable textiles and apparels. Samarth 2.0 to modernize the upgrade the textile skilling ecosystem through collaboration with industry and academic institutions. Further, I propose to set up mega textile parks in challenge mode. They can also focus on bringing value addition to technical textiles. I propose to launch the Mahatma Gandhi Gram Swaraj initiative to strengthen khadi, handloom, and handicrafts. This will help in global market linkage and branding. It will streamline and support training, skilling, quality of process, and production. This will benefit our weavers, village industries, one district, one product, ODOP initiative, and also our rural youth. India has the potential to emerge as a global hub for high quality, affordable sports goods. I propose a dedicated initiative for sports goods that will promote manufacturing, research, and innovation in equipment design, as well as material sciences. Rejuvenation of legacy industrial clusters. I propose to introduce a scheme to revive 200 legacy industrial clusters to improve their cost competitiveness and efficiency through infrastructure and technology upgradation. Creating champion SMEs and supporting micro enterprises. Recognizing MSMEs as a vital engine of growth, I propose a three-pronged approach to help them grow as champions. Equity support. I propose to introduce a dedicated 10,000 crores SME growth fund to create future champions, incentivizing enterprises based on select criteria. I also propose to top up the Self-Reliant India Fund set up in 2021 with 2,000 crores to continue support to micro enterprises and maintain their access to risk capital. Liquidity support. With TREDS, more than 7 lakh crore has been made available to MSMEs. To leverage its full potential, I propose 4 measures. 1, mandate TREDS as the transaction settlement platform for all purchases from MSMEs by CPSEs, serving as a benchmark for other corporates. 2, introduce a credit guarantee support mechanism through CGTMSE for invoice discounting on TREDS platform. 3, link GEM with TREDS for sharing information with financiers about government purchases from MSMEs, encouraging cheaper and quicker financing. 4, introduce TREDS receivables as asset-backed securities, helping develop a secondary market, enhancing liquidity and settlement of transactions. Professional support. Government will facilitate professional institutions such as the ICAI, ICSI, ICMAI to design short-term modular courses and practical tools to develop a cadre of corporate mitras, especially in Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns. These accredited para-professionals will help MSMEs meet compliance requirements at affordable costs. Infrastructure. During this past decade, our government has undertaken several initiatives for large-scale enhancement of public infrastructure, such as Infrastructure Investment Trust in WITS and Real Estate Investment Trust REITs, and institutions like NIIF and NABFID. We shall continue to focus on developing infrastructure in cities with over 5 lakh population, that is tier 2, tier 3 cities, which have expanded to become growth centers. Public capital expenditure has increased manifold from 2 lakh crore in 2014-15 to an allocation of 11.2 lakh crore in BE 25-26. In this coming year, that is financial year 2026-27, I propose to increase it to 12.2 lakh crores to continue the momentum. To strengthen the confidence of private developers regarding risks during infrastructure development and construction phase, I propose to set up an infrastructure risk guarantee fund to provide prudentially calibrated partial credit guarantee to lenders. Over the years, rights have emerged as a successful instrument for asset monetization. I propose to accelerate recycling of significant real estate assets of the CPSEs through the setting up of dedicated rights. To promote environmentally sustainable movement of cargo, I propose to 1. Establish new dedicated freight corridors connecting Dankuni in the east to Surat in the west. Operationalize 20 new national waterways over the next 5 years. Starting with National Waterways 5 in Orissa to connect mineral-rich areas of Talcher and Angul and industrial centers like Kalinga Nagar to the ports of Paradeep and Dhamra. Training institutes will be set up as regional centers of excellence for development of required manpower for these waterways. This will benefit youth in the entire stretch of the waterways to train and acquire skills. Further, a ship repair ecosystem catering to inland waterways will also be set up at Varanasi and Patna. And C, launch a coastal cargo promotion scheme for incentivizing a modal shift from rail to road to increase the share of inland waterways and coastal shipping from 6% to 12% by 2047. To enhance last mile and remote connectivity and promote tourism, I propose to give incentives to indigenize manufacturing of seaplanes. A seaplane VGF scheme will be also introduced to provide support for operations. Carbon capture, utilization and storage. Aligning with the roadmap launched in December 2025, the carbon capture, utilization and storage technologies at scale will achieve higher readiness and in end-use application across 5 industrial sectors, including power, steel, cement, refineries, and chemicals. An outlay of 20,000 crore is proposed over the next 5 years for this purpose. City economic regions. Cities are India's engines of growth, innovation, and opportunities. We shall now focus on tier 2, tier 3 infrastructure and basic amenities. This budget aims to further amplify the potential of cities to deliver the economic power of agglomerations by mapping city economic regions based on their specific growth drivers. An allocation of 5,000 crore per CER over 5 years is proposed for implementing their plans through a challenge mode with a reform cum result-based financing mechanism. In order to promote environmentally sustainable passenger systems, we will develop 7 high-speed rail corridors between cities as growth connectors, namely Mumbai to Pune, Pune to Hyderabad, Hyderabad to Bengaluru, Hyderabad to Chennai, Chennai to Bengaluru, Delhi to Varanasi, Varanasi to Siliguri. Financial sector. The Indian banking sector today is characterized by strong balance sheet, historic highs in profitability, improved asset quality, and coverage exceeding 98% of villages in the country. At this juncture, we are well placed to futuristically evaluate the measures needed to continue on the path of reform-led growth of this sector. I propose setting up a high-level committee on banking for Vikasit Bharat. High-level committee on banking for Vikasit Bharat to comprehensively review the sector and align it with India's next phase of growth, while safeguarding financial stability. Inclusion for Vikasit Bharat has been outlined with clear targets for credit disbursement and technology adoption in order to achieve scale and improve efficiency in the public sector NBFCs. As a first step, it is proposed to restructure the Power Finance Corporation and Rural Electrification Corporation. I propose a comprehensive review of the foreign exchange management non-debt instruments rules to create a more contemporary, user-friendly framework for foreign investments consistent with India's evolving economic priorities. Corporate bond market. I propose to introduce a market-making framework with suitable access to funds and derivatives on corporate bond indices. I also propose to introduce total return swaps on corporate bonds. Municipal bonds. To encourage the issuance of municipal bonds of higher value by larger cities, I propose an incentive of 100 crore rupees for a single bond issuance. 100 crore rupees for a single bond issuance of more than 1,000 crore. The current scheme under Amrit which incentivizes issuances up to 200 crores only, will also continue to support smaller and medium towns. That will also continue to support the smaller and medium towns. Ease of doing business. Individual persons resident outside India, PROI, will be permitted to invest in equity instruments of listed Indian companies through the portfolio investment scheme. It is also proposed to increase the investment limit for an individual PROI under the scheme from 5% to 10%, with an overall investment limit for all individual PROIs to 24% from the current 10%. Emerging technologies including AI. 21st century is technology driven. Adoption of technology is for the benefit of all people. Farmers in the field, women in STEM, youth keen to upskill, and Divyangjan to access newer opportunities. The government has taken several steps to support new technologies through AI Mission, National Quantum Mission, Anusandhan National Research Fund, and Research and Development and Innovation Fund. Our second kartavya is to fulfill aspirations and build capacities. Close to 25 crore individuals have come out of multi-dimensional poverty through a decade of our government's sustained and reform-oriented efforts. Our government has therefore decided to place a renewed emphasis on the service sector to provide a pathway to fulfilling aspirations of a youthful India with the following measures. I propose to set up a high-powered Education to Employment and Enterprises Standing Committee to recommend measures that focus on services sector as a core driver of Viksit Bharat. This will make us a global leader in services with a 10% global share by 2047. The committee will prioritize areas to optimize the potential for growth, employment, and exports. They will also assess the impact of emerging technologies, including AI, on jobs and skill requirements and propose measures thereof. To create a range of skilled career pathways, a new range of skilled career pathways for our youth, I propose interventions in the following sectors. Health. Existing institutions for allied health professionals will be upgraded and new AHP institutions established in private and government sectors. This will cover 10 selected disciplines, including optometry, radiology, anesthesia, OT technology, applied psychology, and behavioral health, and add 1 lakh AHPs over the next 5 years. A strong care system covering geriatric and allied care services will be built. A variety of NSQF-aligned programs will be developed to train multi-skilled caregivers, combining core care and allied skills such as wellness, yoga, and operation of medical assistive devices. In the coming year, 1.5 lakh caregivers will be trained. Hubs for medical value tourism. To promote India as a hub for medical tourism services, I propose to launch a scheme to support states in establishing 5 regional medical hubs in partnership with the private sector. These hubs will serve as integrated healthcare complexes that combine medical, educational, and research facilities. They will have Ayush centers, medical value tourism facilitation centers, and infrastructure for diagnostics, post-care, and rehabilitation. These hubs will provide diverse opportunities, job opportunities for health professionals, including doctors and AHPs. Yoga, already respected in several parts of the world, was given a mass global recognition when Honorable Prime Minister took it to the UN. Post-COVID, Ayurveda gained a similar global acceptance and recognition. Exporting quality Ayurveda products helps farmers who grow the herbs and youth who process the products. To meet growing global demand, a few more steps are being taken. I propose to 1. Set up 3 new All India Institutes of Ayurveda. 2. Upgrade Ayush pharmacies and drug testing labs for higher standards of certification ecosystem and make available more skilled personnel. 3. Upgrade the WHO Global Traditional Medicine Center in Jamnagar to bolster evidence-based research, training, and awareness for traditional medicine. Animal husbandry. Livestock contributes to close to 16% of farm income, including of poor and marginal households. To scale up availability of veterinary professionals by more than 20,000, I propose to roll out a loan-linked capital subsidy support scheme for establishment of veterinary and para-veterinary colleges, veterinary hospitals, diagnostic laboratories, and breeding facilities in private sector. Collaboration between Indian and foreign institutions will also be facilitated. Orange economy. India's animation, visual effects, gaming and comics sector, ABGC sector, is a growing industry projected to require 2 million professionals by 2030. I propose to support the Indian Institute of Creative Technologies, Mumbai, in setting up ABGC content creator labs in 15,000 secondary schools all over the country and 500 colleges. The Indian design industry is expanding rapidly, and yet there is a shortage of Indian designers. I propose to establish, through Challenge Route, a new National Institute of Design to boost design education and development in the eastern region of India. Education. Our government will support states through Challenge Route in creating 5 university townships in the vicinity of major industrial and logistics corridors. These planned academic zones will host multiple universities, colleges and research institutions, skill centers and residential complexes. In higher education, STEM institutions, prolonged hours of study and laboratory work pose some challenges for girl students. Through VGF, viability gap funding and capital support, one girls' hostel will be established in every district. To promote astrophysics and astronomy via immersive experiences. 4 telescope infrastructure facilities will be set up or upgraded. The National Large Solar Telescope, the National Large Optical Infrared Telescope, the Himalayan Chandra Telescope, and the Cosmos 2 Planetarium. Tourism. The tourism sector has the potential to play a large role in the employment generation, forex earnings, and expanding the local economy. I propose to set up a National Institute of Hospitality by upgrading the existing National Council for Holidays. It will function as a bridge between academia, industry, and government. I also propose a pilot scheme for upskilling 10,000 guides in 20 iconic tourist sites through a standardized, high-quality, 12-week training course in hybrid mode in collaboration with the Indian Institute of Management. A national destination digital knowledge grid will be established to digitally document all places of significance, cultural, spiritual, and heritage. This initiative will create a new ecosystem of jobs for local researchers, historians, content creators, and technology partners. India has the potential and opportunity to offer world-class trekking and hiking experience. We will develop ecologically sustainable mountain trails in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Jammu Kashmir. Also in Araku Valley in the Eastern Ghats and Podigai Malai in the Western Ghats. Turtle trails along key nesting sites in the coastal areas of Odisha, Karnataka, and Kerala. And 3, bird watching trails along the Pulikat Lake in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. It's on the border. Under the visionary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, we established the International Big Cat Alliance in 2024. This year, India is hosting the first ever Global Big Cat Summit, where heads of governments and ministers from 95 range countries will deliberate on collective strategies for conservation. Heritage and culture tourism. I propose to develop 15 archaeological sites, including Lothal, Dolavira, Rakhi Gadi, Adichanallur, Saranath, Hastinapur, and Leh Palace into vibrant experiential cultural destinations. Excavated landscapes will be open to the public through curated walkways. Immersive storytelling skills and technologies will be introduced to help conservation labs, interpretation centers, and guides. The sports sector provides multiple means of employment, skilling, and job opportunities. Taking forward the systematic nurturing of sports talent, which is set in motion through the Khelo India program earlier, I propose to launch a Khelo India mission to transform the sports sector over the next decade. The mission will facilitate an integrated talent development pathway supported by training centers, which are foundational, intermediate, and elite levels. B, systematic development of coaches and support staff. C, integration of sports science and technology. D, competitions and leagues to promote sports culture and provide platforms. And E, development of sports infrastructure for training and competition. Our third Kartavya aligns with our vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas towards Vikasit Bharat. This requires targeted efforts for 1, increasing farmer incomes through productivity enhancement and entrepreneurship, with special attention to small and marginal farmers. B, empowering Divyangjan through access to livelihood opportunities, training, and high-quality assistive devices. C, empowering the vulnerable to access mental health and trauma care. D, focus on the Purvodaya states and the Northeast region to accelerate development and employment opportunities. Fisheries. We will undertake initiatives for integrated development of 500 reservoirs and Amrit Sarovars. 2, strengthen the fisheries value chain in coastal areas and enable market linkages involving startups and women-led groups together with fish farmer producer organizations. Animal husbandry. To provide quality employment opportunities in rural and peri-urban areas, we will support the animal husbandry sector in entrepreneurship development through A, credit-linked subsidy program, B, scaling up and modernization of livestock enterprises, C, enhanced creation of livestock, dairy, and poultry, enhanced creation of livestock, dairy, and poultry-focused integrated value chains, and D, encourage creation of livestock farmer producer organizations. High-value agriculture. To diversify farm outputs, increase productivity, enhance farmers' incomes, and create new employment opportunities, we will support high-value crops such as coconut, sandalwood, cocoa, cashew in the coastal areas. Agar trees in Northeast and nuts such as almonds, walnuts, and pine nuts in our hilly regions. All of them will be supported. India is the world's largest producer of coconuts. About 30 million people, including nearly 10 million farmers, depend on coconuts for their livelihood. To further enhance competitiveness in coconut production, I propose a coconut promotion scheme to increase production and enhance productivity through various interventions, including replacing and non-productive trees with new saplings or plants or varieties in major coconut growing states. A dedicated program is proposed for Indian cashew and cocoa to make India self-reliant in raw cashew and coconut production and processing, enhance export competitiveness, and transform Indian cashew and Indian cocoa into premium global brands by 2030. Sandalwood. Sandalwood is closely linked to India's social and cultural heritage. Our government will partner with state governments to promote focused cultivation and post-harvest processing to restore the glory of the Indian sandalwood ecosystem, to rejuvenate old, low-yielding orchards, and expand high-density cultivation of walnuts, almonds, and pine nuts. We will support a dedicated program to enhance farmer incomes and in bringing value addition by engaging youth. Bharat Vistar, that is virtually integrated system to access agricultural resources. I propose to launch Bharat Vistar, a multilingual AI tool that shall integrate the AgriStack portals and the ICAR package on agricultural practices with AI systems. This will enhance farm productivity, enable better decisions for farmers, and reduce risk by providing customized advisory support. Building on the success of Lakpati Didi program, I propose to help women take the next step from credit-linked livelihoods to being owners of enterprises. Self-help entrepreneur, marts will be set up as community-owned retail outlets within the cluster-level federations through enhanced and innovative financing instruments. Empowering Divyangjan. Divyangjan Kaushal Yojana. Information technology, AVGC sectors, hospitality and food and beverages sectors often offer task-oriented and process-driven roles which are suitable for Divyangjan. We will ensure dignified livelihood opportunities through industry-relevant and customized training specific to each Divyangjan group. Divyang Sahara Yojana. Timely access to high-quality assistive devices for all eligible Divyangjan is a fundamental need. I propose to 1. Support the Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India, Alimco, to set up and to scale up production of assistive devices, invest in R&D and AI integration, strengthen PM Divyasha Kendras, and support setting up of assistive technology marts as modern retail style centers where Divyangjan and senior citizens can see, try, and purchase assistive products. Reaffirming our commitment to mental health and trauma care. There are no national institutes for mental health care in North India. We will therefore set up a NIMHANS 2 and also upgrade national mental health institutes in Ranchi and in Tezpur as regional apex institutions. emergency and vulnerable to unexpected expenditure. We will strengthen and increase these capacities by 50% in district hospitals by establishing emergency and trauma care centers. Focus on Purvodaya states and northeastern regions. Purvodaya, I propose the development of an integrated East Coast industrial corridor with a well-connected node at Durgapur, creation of 5 tourism destinations in 5 Purvodaya states, and the provision of 4,000 e-buses. Buddhist sites in northeastern region. The northeastern region is a civilizational confluence of Theravada and Mahayana or Vajrayana traditions. I propose to launch a scheme for development of Buddhist circuits in Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Assam, Manipur, Mizoram, and Tripura. The scheme will cover preservation of temples and monasteries, pilgrimage interpretation centers, connectivity, and pilgrim amenities. 16th Finance Commission. On 17th November 2025, the 16th Finance Commission submitted its report to the President. As mandated under Article 281 of the Constitution, the government is to lay the report along with the explanatory memorandum on the action taken report on the recommendations of the Commission in Parliament, which, Sir, Honorable Speaker, you've allowed me to do at the commencement of this session. The government has accepted the recommendation of the Commission to retain the vertical share of devolution at 41%. As recommended by the Commission, I have provided 1.4 lakh crores of rupees to the states for the year 2026-2027 as Finance Commission grants. These include rural and urban local body and disaster management grants. Fiscal consolidation. Government has been delivering on our fiscal commitments consistently without compromising on social needs. To strive towards accepted standards of fiscal management in Budget 25-26, I had indicated that the central government would target reaching a debt to GDP ratio of 50 plus or minus 1% by 2030-31. In line with this, the debt to GDP ratio is estimated to be 55.6% of GDP in BE 26-27, compared to 56.1% of GDP in RE 25-26. A declining debt to GDP ratio will gradually free up resources for priority sector lending and expenditure by reducing the outgo on interest payments. One of the main operational instruments for debt targeting is the fiscal deficit. I'm happy to inform this august House that I fulfilled my commitment made in 2021-2022 to reduce fiscal deficit below 4.5% of GDP by 25-26. In RE 25-26, the fiscal deficit has been estimated at par with BE of 2025-26 at 4.4% of GDP. In line with the new fiscal prudence path of debt consolidation, the fiscal deficit in BE 26% of the GDP. The revised estimates of the non-debt receipts are 34 lakh crore rupees, of which the center's net tax receipts are 26.7 lakh crore. The revised estimate of the total expenditure is 49.6 lakh crore rupees, of which the capital expenditure is about 11 lakh crores. Budget estimates 2026 to 2027. Coming to 26, non-debt receipts and the total expenditure are estimated as 36.5 lakh crore and 53.5 lakh crore respectively. The centre's net tax receipts are estimated at 28.7 lakh crore rupees. To finance the fiscal deficit, the net market borrowings from dated securities are estimated at 11.7 lakh crore rupees. The balance financing is expected to come from small savings and other sources. The gross market borrowings are estimated at 17.2 lakh crore rupees. I'll now move to Part B. Part B, direct taxes. Honorable Speaker, sir, I now present my proposals on direct taxes. New Income Tax Act. In July 2024, I announced a comprehensive review of the Income Tax Act 1961. This was completed in a record time, and the Income Tax Act 2025 will come into effect from 1st April 2026. The simplified income tax rules and forms will be notified shortly, giving adequate time to taxpayers to acquaint themselves with its requirements. The forms have been redesigned such that ordinary citizens can comply without difficulty. Ease of living. I propose that any interest awarded by the Motor Accident Claims Tribunal to a natural person will be exempt from income tax, and any TDS on this account will be done away with. I propose to reduce TCS rate on the sale of overseas tour program package from the current 5% and 20% to 2% without any stipulation of amount. I propose to reduce TCS rate for pursuing education and for medical purposes under the Liberalized Remittance Scheme, popularly known as LRS, from 5% to 2%. Supply of manpower services is proposed to be specifically brought within the ambit of payment to contractors for the purpose of TDS to avoid ambiguity. Thus, TDS on these services will be at the rate of either 1% or 2% only. I propose a scheme for small taxpayers, wherein a rule-based automated process will enable obtaining a lower or nil deduction certificate instead of filing an application with the assessing officer. For the ease of taxpayer holding securities in multiple companies, I propose to enable depositories to accept Form 15G or Form 15H from the investor and provide it directly to various relevant companies. I propose to extend time available for revising returns from 31st December to up to 31st March with the payment of a nominal fee. I also propose to stagger the timeline for filing of tax returns. Individuals with ITR 1 and ITR 2 returns will continue to file till 31st July, and non-audit business cases or trusts are proposed to be allowed time till 31st August. TDS on sale of immovable property by a non-resident is proposed to be deducted and deposited through resident buyers and his or her PAN-based challan instead of requiring a TAN, which is a temporary accounting number. To address practical issues of small taxpayers like students, young professionals, tech employees, relocated NRIs, and such others, I propose to introduce a one-time 6-month foreign asset disclosure scheme for these taxpayers to disclose income or assets below a certain size. This scheme would be applicable for two categories of taxpayers, namely A, who did not disclose their overseas income or assets, and B, who disclosed their overseas income and or paid due tax but could not declare the asset acquired. For category A, the limit of undisclosed income or asset is proposed to be up to 1 crore rupees. They need to pay 30% of fair market value of asset or 30% of undisclosed income as tax and 30% as additional income tax in lieu of penalty and would thereby get immunity from prosecution. For category B, asset value is proposed to be up to 5 crore rupees. Here, immunity from both penalty and prosecution will be available with a payment of fee of 1 lakh rupees. Rationalizing penalty and prosecution. Multiplicity of proceedings are hindrance to the ease of doing business. I propose to integrate assessment and penalty proceedings by way of a common order for both. There will be no interest liability on the taxpayer on the penalty amount for the period of appeal before the first appellate authority, irrespective of the outcome of appeal process. Further, quantum of prepayment is being reduced from 20% to 10% and will continue to be calculated only on core tax demand. As an additional measure for reducing litigation, I propose to allow taxpayers to update their returns even after reassessment proceedings have been initiated, and an additional 10% tax rate over and above the rate applicable for the relevant year. The assessing officer will then use only this updated return in his proceedings. There is already a framework for immunity from penalty and prosecution in the cases of underreporting. I propose to apply this framework for immunity to misreporting too. However, in such a case, the taxpayer will need to pay 100% of the tax amount as an additional income tax over and above the tax and interest due. Penalties for certain technical defaults, such as failure to get accounts audited, non-furnishing of transfer pricing audit report, and default in furnishing statement for financial transactions are proposed to be converted into fee. I propose to rationalize prosecution framework under Income Tax Act while maintaining a careful balance for deterrence in some serious offense. Non-production of books of account and documents and requirement of TDS payment where payment is made in kind are being decriminalized. Further, minor offenses will attract fine only. The remaining prosecutions will be graded commensurate with the quantum of offense. They will entail only simple imprisonment with maximum imprisonment reduced to 2 years and power to courts to convert even those into fines. There is no penalty. There's no penalty presently for non-disclosure of non-immovable foreign assets with aggregate value less than 20 lakh rupees. I propose to also provide them with immunity from prosecution with retrospective effect from 1/10/2024. Cooperatives. Deduction is already allowed to a primary cooperative society engaged in supplying milk, oilseeds, fruits or vegetables raised or grown by its members. I propose to extend this deduction to also include supply of cattle feed and cotton seed produced by its members. I propose to allow inter-cooperative society dividend income as deduction under the new tax regime to the extent it is further distributed to its members. I further propose to allow exemption for a period of 3 years to dividend income received by a notified national cooperative federation on their investments made in companies up to 31/1/2026. This exemption would be allowed only for dividends further distributed to its member cooperatives. Supporting IT sector as India's growth engine. India is a global leader in software development services, IT-enabled services, knowledge process outsourcing services, and contract R&D services relating to software development. These businesses and their segments are quite interconnected with each other. All these services are proposed to be clubbed under a single category of information technology services with a common safe harbor margin available to all. The threshold for availing safe harbor for IT services is being enhanced substantially from 300 crore rupees to 2,000 crore rupees. Safe harbor for IT services shall be approved by an automated rule-driven process without any need for tax officer to examine and accept the application. Once applied by an IT services company, the same safe harbor can be continued for a period of 5 years at a stretch at its choice. For IT services companies who want to conclude advanced pricing agreement, APA, I propose to fast-track unilateral APA process for IT services and endeavor to conclude it within a period of 2 years. The period of 2 years can be extended by a further period of 6 months on taxpayers' request. I propose to extend entering APA to its associated entities also. Attracting global business and investment. Recognizing the need to enable critical infrastructure and boost investment in data centers, I propose to provide tax holiday till 2047 to any foreign company that provides cloud services to customers globally by using data center services from India. It will, however, need to provide services to Indian customers through an Indian reseller entity. I also propose to provide a safe harbor of 15% on cost in case the company providing data center services from India is a related entity. To harness the efficiency of just-in-time logistics for electronic manufacturing, I propose to provide safe harbor to non-residents for component warehousing in a bonded warehouse at a profit margin of 2% of the invoice value. The resultant tax of about 0.7% will be much lower than in competing jurisdictions. To provide fillip to toll manufacturing in India, I propose to provide exemption from income tax for 5 years to any non-resident who provides capital goods, equipment, or tooling to any toll manufacturer in a bonded zone. To encourage vast pool of global talent to work in India for a longer period of time, I propose to provide exemption to global, non-India sourced income of a non-resident expert for a stay period of 5 years under notified schemes. I propose to provide exemption from minimum alternate tax, the MAT, to all non-residents who pay tax on presumptive basis. Tax administration. I propose to constitute a joint committee of Ministry of Corporate Affairs and Central Board of Direct Taxes for incorporating the requirements of income computation and disclosure standards, the ICDS, in the Indian Accounting Standards, Ind AS itself. Separate accounting requirement based on ICDS will be done away with from the tax year 27-28. To support Prime Minister Modi's vision of homegrown accounting and advisory firms to become global leaders, I propose to rationalize safe harbor rules. Other tax proposals. Change in taxation of buyback was brought in to address the improper use of buyback route by promoters. In the interest of minority shareholders, I propose to tax buyback for all types of shareholders as capital gains. However, to disincentivize misuse of tax arbitrage, promoters will pay an additional buyback tax. This will make effective tax 22% for corporate promoters. For non-corporate promoters, the effective tax will be 30%. TCS rate for sellers of specific goods, namely alcoholic liquor, scrap, and minerals, will be rationalized to 2%, and that on tendu leaves will be reduced from 5% to 2%. I propose to raise the STT on futures to 0.05% from the present 0.02%. STT on options premium and exercise of options are both proposed to be raised to 0.15% from the present rate of 0.1% and 0.125% respectively. We reformed the taxation landscape for corporates in 2019 by providing them a simplified regime with lower tax rate so that they could productively focus on business rather than on claim of deductions and exemptions. To encourage companies to shift to the new regime, set off of brought forward MAT credit, minimum alternate tax credit, is proposed to be allowed to companies only in the new regime. Set off using available MAT credit is proposed to be allowed to an extent of 1/4 of the tax liability in the new regime. MAT is proposed to be made final tax, so there will be no further credit accumulation from 1st April 2026. In line with this change, the rate of final tax is being reduced to 14% from the current MAT rate of 15%. The brought forward MAT credit of taxpayers accumulated till 30th March 2026 will continue to be available to them for set off as above. Indirect taxes. I shall now take up proposals related to indirect taxes. My proposals for customs and central excise aim to further simplify the tariff structure, support domestic manufacturing, promote export competitiveness, and correct inversion in duty. To continue weeding out long continuing customs duty exemptions, I propose to remove certain exemptions on items which are being manufactured in India or where the imports are negligible. Similarly, to further simplify the process of ascertaining the rate of duty applicable on a particular item, I propose to incorporate notifications to the tariff schedule itself. I shall now take up sector-specific proposals. Promotion of exports of marine, leather, and textile products. I propose to increase the limit for duty-free imports of specified inputs used for processing seafoods for export from the current 1% to 3% of FOB value of the previous year's export turnover. I also propose to allow duty-free imports of specified inputs, which is currently available for exports of leather or synthetic footwear, to exports of shoe uppers as well. I propose to extend the time period for export of final product from the existing 6 months to 1 year for exporters of leather or textile garments, leather or synthetic footwear, and other leather products. Energy transition and security. I propose to extend the basic customs duty exemption given to capital goods used for manufacturing lithium-ion cells for batteries to those used for manufacturing lithium-ion cells for battery energy storage systems also. I propose to exempt basic customs duty on import of sodium antimonate for use in manufacture of solar glass. Nuclear power. I propose to extend the existing basic customs duty exemption on imports of goods required for nuclear power projects till the year 2035 and expand it for all nuclear plants irrespective of their capacity. Critical minerals. It is proposed to provide basic customs duty exemption to the import of capital goods required for the processing of critical minerals in India. Biogas blended CNG. I propose to exclude the entire value of biogas while calculating the central excise duty payable on biogas blended CNG. Civil and defense aviation. I propose to exempt basic customs duty on components and parts required for the manufacture of civilian training and other aircrafts. It is proposed to exempt basic customs duty on raw materials imported for the manufacture of parts of aircraft to be used in maintenance, repair, or overall requirements by units in the defense sector. Electronics. To deepen value addition in the consumer electronics sector, I propose to exempt basic customs duty on specified parts used in the manufacture of microwave ovens. Special economic zone. To address the concerns arising about utilization of capacity by manufacturing units in the special economic zones due to global trade disruptions, I propose as a special one-time measure to facilitate sales by eligible manufacturing units in SEZs to the domestic tariff area at concessional rates of duty. The quantity of such sales will be limited to a prescribed proportion of their exports. Necessary regulatory changes will be undertaken to operationalize the measures while ensuring level playing field for the units working in the DTA. Ease of living. To rationalize the customs duty structure for goods imported for personal use, I propose to reduce the tariff rate on all dutiable goods imported for personal use from 20% to 10%. To provide relief to patients, particularly those suffering from cancer, I propose to exempt basic customs duty on 17 drugs or medicines. I propose also to add 7 more rare diseases for the purposes of exempting import duties on personal imports of drugs, medicines, and food for special medical purposes used in their treatment. Customs process. India's role and share in the global trade is poised for a major leap in line with our ambition and journey towards Vikasit Bharat. In this regard, I propose many measures for custom processes to have minimal intervention for smoother and faster movement of goods and greater certainty to the trade. Trust-based systems. I propose to enhance duty deferral period for Tier 2 and Tier 3 authorized economic operators, known as AEOs, from 15 days to 30 days. I propose to provide eligible manufacturer importers them to get themselves accredited as a full-fledged Tier 3 AO in due course. To provide greater certainty and for better business planning, I propose to extend validity period of advance ruling binding on customs from the present 3 years to 5 years. In the spirit of the whole of government approach, government agencies will be encouraged to leverage AEO accreditation for preferential treatment in clearing their cargo. Regular importers with trusted long-standing supply chains will be recognized in the risk system,
so that the need for verification of their cargo
every time can be minimized. Export cargo using electronic sealing. Export cargo using electronic sealing will be provided through clearance from the factory premises to the ship. For import of goods not needing any compliance, filing of bill of entry by a trusted importer and Aramco clearance formalities. This will enable goods to be released immediately on arrival. The customs warehouse framework will be transformed into a warehouse operator-centric system with a self-declarations, electronic tracking, and risk-based audit. These reforms will move away from the current system of officer-dependent approvals and reduce transaction delays and compliance costs. Ease of doing business. Approvals required for cargo clearance from various government agencies will be seamlessly processed through a single and interconnected digital window by the end of the financial year. Processes involved in clearance of 4 products, accounting for about 70% of interdicted cargo, will be operationalized on this system by April 2026 itself. For goods not having any compliance requirement, clearance will be done by customs immediately after online registration is completed by the importer, subject to the payment of duty. Customs integrated system will be rolled out in 2 years as a single integrated and scalable platform for all customs processes. Utilization of non-intrusive scanning with advanced imaging and AI technology for risk assessment will be expanded in a phased manner with the objective to scan every container across all the major ports. New export opportunities to support Indian fishermen to fully harness the economic value of marine resources beyond our territorial waters. The following measures will be taken. A, fish catch by an Indian fishing vessel in exclusive economic zone or on the high seas will be made free of duty. Landing of such fish on foreign port will be treated as export of goods. Safeguards will be put in place to prevent misuse during fish catch, transit, or transshipment. To support aspirations of India's small businesses, artisans, and startups to access global markets through e-commerce, I am pleased to announce complete removal of the current value cap of 10 lakh rupees per consignment on courier exports. In addition, handling of rejected and returned consignments will be improved with effective use of technology for identifying such consignments. I propose to revise provisions governing baggage clearance during international travel to address genuine concerns of passengers. The revised rules will enhance duty-free allowances in line with the present-day travel realities and provide clarity in temporary carriage of goods brought in or taken out. There are honest taxpayers who are willing to settle disputes by paying all their dues, but they get deterred due to negative connotation associated with penalty. They will now be able to close cases by paying an additional amount in lieu of penalty. Honorable Speaker, sir, with this, I commend the budget to this august House. Jai Hind. One and a half hours.
आइटम नंबर 3 माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी।
Item number 2, sir.
3.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table of the following statements under Section 3, 1 of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act of 2003. Medium-term fiscal policy, fiscal policy strategy statement, and macroeconomic framework statement.
आइटम नंबर 4 माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी।
Sir, with your permission, I move for leave to introduce the Finance Bill 2026.
प्रश्न ये कि विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करने की अनुमति प्रदान की जाए। जो सदस्य इस पक्ष में हाँ गए, जो सदस्य विरोध में ना गए, मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में, हाँ वालों के पक्ष में अनुमति प्रदान की जाती है। माननीय मंत्री जी, अब विधेयक पूरे स्थापित करें।
Sir, I introduce the bill.
माननीय सदस्यगण, आपको सूचित किया जाता है कि माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी के बजट भाषण की कॉपी पब्लिकेशन काउंटर पर ली जाती है। बजट भाषण और बजट से संबंधित दस्तावेज आपके मोबाइल फोन और मेंबर पोर्टल्स पर ही उपलब्ध है। सभा की कार्रवाई कल सोमवार दिनांक 2 फरवरी 2026 को प्राप्त 11 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
Tourism. The tourism sector has the potential to play a large role in the employment generation, forex earnings, and expanding the local economy. I propose to set up a National Institute of Hospitality by upgrading the existing National Council for Hotel Management and Catering Technology. It will function as a bridge between academia, industry, and government. I also propose a pilot scheme for upskilling 10,000 guides in 20 iconic tourist sites through a standardized, high-quality, 12-week training course in hybrid mode in collaboration with the Indian Institute of Management. A national destination digital knowledge grid will be established to digitally document all places of significance, cultural, spiritual, and heritage. This initiative will create a new ecosystem of jobs for local researchers, historians, content creators, and technology partners. India has the potential and opportunity to offer world-class trekking and hiking experience. We will develop ecologically sustainable mountain trails in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Jammu Kashmir. Also in Araku Valley in the Eastern Ghats and Podigai Malai in the Western Ghats. Turtle trails along key nesting sites in the coastal areas of Odisha, Karnataka, and Kerala. And 3 bird watching trails along the Pulikat Lake in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. It's on the border. Under the visionary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, we established the International Big Cat Alliance in 2024. This year, India is hosting the first ever Global Big Cat Summit, where heads of governments and ministers from 95 range countries will deliberate on collective strategies for conservation. heritage and culture tourism. I propose to develop 15 archaeological sites, including Lothal, Dholavira, Rakhi Gadi, Adichanallu, Sarnath, Hastinapur, and Leh Palace into vibrant experiential cultural destinations. Excavated landscapes will be open to the public through curated walkways. Immersive storytelling skills and technologies will be introduced to help conservation labs, interpretation centers, and guides. Tourism. The tourism sector has the potential to play a large role in the employment generation, forex earnings, and expanding the local economy. I propose to set up a National Institute of Hospitality by upgrading the existing National Council for Hotel Management and Catering Technology. It will function as a bridge between academia, industry, and government. I also propose a pilot scheme for upskilling 10,000 guides in 20 iconic tourist sites through a standardized, high-quality, 12-week training course in hybrid mode in collaboration with the Indian Institute of Management. A national destination digital knowledge grid will be established to digitally document all places of significance, cultural, spiritual, and heritage. This initiative will create a new ecosystem of jobs for local researchers, historians, content creators, and technology partners. India has the potential and opportunity to offer world-class trekking and hiking experience. We will develop ecologically sustainable mountain trails in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Jammu Kashmir. Also in Araku Valley in the Eastern Ghats and Podigai Malai in the Western Ghats. Turtle trails along nesting sites and 3 bird watching trails along the Pulikat Lake in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. It's on the border. Under the visionary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, we established the International Big Cat Alliance in 2024. This year,